Here we go again.
You can come in. Come on. After Honest Legacy will be then a peacemaker.
Peacemaker in the fire. Beautiful. Together with like-minded leaders, we have a voice. Is it safe?
It is safe.
Everyone wants to know. So here it is. Hi, Mr. President. Congratulations.
Did you watch it?
I did not. Yeah, I will see it on the news.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the following program. I am your host, Joe Newman, a.k.a. Good Lawgic. As tonight we celebrate the 1-year anniversary of Trump's return to power, which was precisely 1 year ago today. I was in Washington, D.C. I was meeting the likes of Senator James Langford, hanging out at the which ball was it? There were 3 balls going on that night. I was at one of them. It was cold out that night. I think it's colder now here, though. It's very cold. It's very cold. Anyhow, so we have 1 year out of 4 in the books. And I think that tonight's a good time for us to assess just exactly the positives and perhaps some of the negatives, which we've seen over the past year. Moments that were awesome, moments that were disappointing. I'm going to fixate really on Trump and the government. I'm not going to be going through like other events in detail, like, terrible tragedies like Charlie Kirk or other things that I'm really going to be fixating on Trump's work as president, working with Congress, defeating the Democrats, his highs, his lows. Obviously there's a lot of other memories as far as things that happened primarily in 2025, which we could spend a whole night talking about. But my fixation here is really going to be on assessing the work that Trump did so far, as we're a quarter of the way through his second term. Now we've seen 5 years of Trump as president, and I think that there's really a lot to discuss with respect to the work that he did. I also plan on spending some time talking about further developments in Minnesota because it is 2026. And that means that all we can talk about is Minnesota because there's just something else popping off there every single day. It's just the wild Northwest, I guess. I don't know what it is, but Minnesota is crazy town. So I'm going to be spending some time talking about that. We have our goal up tonight. We have our goal. Tonight's goal is that we have our regular 15 super chats or rants of $10 or more. If we hit our goal tonight, what's our objective? Well, if we hit our goal of 15 super chats or more of $10 or more, in that case, that we will have tonight a 3-hour show, including an hour call. And I kind of hope we hit this goal in the sense that if we do, I plan on actually hearing from you guys, your thoughts as to what you liked about this year or perhaps things that you were disappointed in. I'm sure that Pam Bondi's name is going to come up a lot, as it should, to the extent we're talking about disappointments. But she's not the only frustration that MAGA may have. Last night, I was in a space on X where I was debating with the guy who I was hanging out with a year ago tonight. Meaning a year ago, I was hanging out with this gentleman from X who goes by Diligent Denizen. And I consider him a friend to this day, even though some of his opinions over the past year have become somewhat antagonistic towards Trump. He particularly got all bent out of shape over the Epstein debacle. And since then, I felt as if he's gone on a little bit of an excessive rampage that he doesn't see any good to what Trump has done. And I'm probably going to talk about that somewhat, but it's one person who I can never get angry at all is this guy right here. How are you, Uncivil Law? Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. That's right. I got Uncivil Law in the chat here tonight. So you know that good times are ahead. So I will say, yes, it has been a very interesting year. If you're interested in joining me tonight, Kurt, I'm going to send you a link. You popped in here early enough. I don't like sending links out when people show up late in the show, just because I feel as if I'm not really giving them their due. But if you want to hang out with me in celebration of the 1-year anniversary of Trump's return to the White House, no pressure at all if you don't have time. But if you'd like to join me, I will send you a link because it's been like a year since I've seen you. It's been a long time. So I can definitely do that. I wasn't planning on bringing people in here tonight, but that works for me. So let me dig up Uncivil here. Uncivil. Why is this not working? I have this song in my head. I'm warning you all. I have this song in my head, which I stumbled on it in YouTube, and it's kind of been making me crazy just because I keep hearing it in my head. Let's see if I can. This. Do you know how frustrating it is having that in your head? Yeah, you can try to figure out what they're saying. If you're not British, you don't know what that is. I know what they're saying. You may or may not know what they're saying. I know what they're saying. So they're saying Bart Simpson bouncing. It's very weird. Why would they be saying that? We'll see if this guy knows what it is. How are you, my brother? Kurt,
I'm doing pretty great. How are you?
Thank God. Can't complain. Did you ever hear that before? What this is?
Yeah, it's one of those soccer chants, but
yes.
Yeah, but I saw where someone like posted like 8 different possible interpretations of it.
Yes.
And whichever one you read, you hear.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right here. It's like like Bart Simpson bouncing, lactates in pharmacy, lobsters. That isn't mercy.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, I recently introduced my daughter to these what I would call oral AUR, like oral illusions or like audio illusions or things of that, where I've been showing her like Yanni versus what was the other one? Laurel and Yanni and things of that nature. So when I stumbled on that, I knew she would appreciate that. Anyway,
are you familiar with the shepherd tone that sounds like it's always going up or always going down?
No, that one I haven't heard. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, what they are, I'll tell you. Some people, for example, they'll hear baptism piracy when they hear this. Check it out. We're going to do this. We're going to go through some of them, okay?
They're saying that is embarrassing, I'm pretty sure.
That is what they're saying. But it's like you can say I actually think that isn't my receipt is like the one that really Anyway, I had that going through my head for like the last 3 hours. So
excellent.
Yes.
Well, that is embarrassing, Joe.
Well, that isn't my receipt. So anyhow, how you been, brother?
Good. I just had a birthday a week ago. So
happy birthday.
Happy birthday to me.
Awesome.
And I don't know if you saw on my channel, but I recently posted that I made my powerlifting goal of a combined 1,000 pounds lift.
What does that mean? A combined 1,000 pounds.
So the powerlifting is 3 main lifts. It's squat, bench, and deadlift. And so as long as you get 1,000 pound 1 rep max from those 3 things, in my case, it was 355, 300, and 345. So that's
you lift 300 pounds, 355.
Bench.
You bench 355.
Well, I benched 300. I squatted 355. So it was a 355 squat, 300 bench, and a 345 deadlift. I have it on video. It's on my channel.
Freak.
Yeah. So that's 1,000 pounds. So I made 1,000 pound club. So I'm feeling really good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even imagine. I can't even, wow. Wow. Even during my peak, I couldn't
This
top
is my all-time
200.
peak. This is better than I've ever lifted in my
There's
life.
no way I ever could have lifted 200 pounds. I could have benched 200 pounds. I'm trying to think. Like, I think
300 pounds.
I'm trying to think. I think at my peak, I'm trying to think, and I don't know, not with free weights, like with like set weights. With set weights, I could have done like 90 on each. I think that was like what I sort of like topped out at. So I was like, that's 180.
Mhm.
But I don't think I ever topped 200. Hold on one sec. Yeah. So anyhow, tonight's focus is on the 1-year anniversary of Trump and going through the good, the bad, and all that other of Trump's administration. I'm going to ask you before we get started here. Do you think that Trump's work in his first year has been, how would you rank it, scale 1 to 10? We'll start there.
I think he's been moving incredibly aggressively towards all of his goals, and I really appreciate that he's putting in the effort. Some people seem to feel like he hasn't been trying, but I feel like he's been doing everything he can. Signing executive orders, taking names, kicking ass. He effectively closed the southern border, stopped letting new people in, which Joe Biden said he couldn't do with the new law. But apparently all it took was the will to try.
Yeah.
So that apparently was great. And of course, 2 million people have been deported. That includes self-deports, but I don't care. Either way, it's fine by me. So I'll take it. And we have a new national security posture. The only thing I haven't really been a big fan of is the tariffs. That's the only thing I don't really have a great sense that, because our goals seem conflicted. It's like we can't really have the goal simultaneously of bringing in revenue and bringing in manufacturing. Those are like two different things. But so our goals have been a little muddled.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, I've found his, I was very impressed, obviously, with the operation in Venezuela. I'm very impressed with the bombing of the facilities in Iran. I have no problem with that. Dropping a couple bunker busters to take out their Iranian enrichment doesn't cost us anything, and just do a little drive-by. I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. I happen to really like the tariffs a lot. If you would have asked me a year ago, I would have been like, no, I don't want tariffs. And I really got talked into it early in this administration, only because I like Trump's capacity to wield the tariffs for purposes of negotiating with foreign countries. I think that America is positioned financially to use tariffs as a stick to basically make you do our bidding, or and it's using the built-in strength of the American dollar, or really the American consumer, as a purchaser of foreign goods, and that inherent strength in a way where I want him to have flexibility with it, while at the same time recognizing that most presidents, I would not want them to have that capacity. I don't think they're going to stand up to SCOTUS scrutiny.
I don't think so either. They're going to be struck down.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they will be struck down. I'm simply saying the idea of him using them, I happen to like a lot, because he is a phenomenal negotiator in dealing with these foreign countries. So, if he says he wants Greenland, whatever reason the heck he wants it, I think he's going to get Greenland one way or another. I don't think he's going to invade. I think he's going to basically twist their arms until they basically
They can't invade. That's Danish. You can't. They're an ally. They're a part of NATO.
Well, that doesn't mean you can't invade. It just means you're breaching your alliance. I don't foresee him invading. I just simply foresee him twisting their arms until they feel they have no choice but to give him whatever level of control over Greenland that he wants. So, and that's why he keeps pressuring, saying, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. I'm not playing around. This is going to happen. We saw what he did with Panama. We saw what he did with respect to these tariffs. We saw how he broke Colombia, that they basically, they were like, we're going to be tariffing you back 100 times over. And like within hours, they're like, we're really sorry. Please, we're so sorry.
Yeah, I was trying to remember that when their president, vice president said some shit, And like by the time our plane like landed on their tarmac, they were singing a new story. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So I think that there was a lot of great things about what he accomplished this year. Phenomenal. I'm going to go through them in like on a little bit of a list later on, but and I think that I just remind my audience the first 100 days were so action packed. I basically made a 2-hour show every day as to this is what he did today, and I had 2 hours of content for like the first 100 days of his administration. It was like okay, today's episode is Trump Day 72, and let's just go through it. And there was just so much there because he was working that furiously. So people who think he isn't trying or hasn't putting in the effort are insane.
And I think it's also been very impactful because I've heard some grousing from people on the right who are like, well, nothing's happened. I'm like, really? Are you sure? It feels like a lot's happened to me.
Right. And I think people had insane expectations, but at the same time, I do think that some of his selections have been very disappointing. You cannot deny the fact that what happened with Epstein was a disaster and an unforced error that was humiliating to him and the entire administration and to Kash Patel, and permanently damaged, in my mind, the reputations of both Patel and Bongino in ways that were unnecessary, and most significantly Pam Bondi, who I think MAGA will never ever embrace her. She'd have to convict Obama for them to ever appreciate.
She said she had
her.
the files on her desk, man. Then there are no files. It's amazing.
Yeah. Files on the desk. There are no files. He didn't commit suicide.
And now I've heard that they've got 100 attorneys over at DOJ trying to go through the Epstein files in response to Congress's trying to go through it. The files don't exist.
And then failing to turn them over when there's a statute. He signs off on a law saying we're going to do it. I mean, it's just been a clusterfuck, and you can't. There's no excusing it. But I actually spent, yesterday I spent a good hour or an hour and a half on an X space arguing with this guy who was celebrating with me last year in DC. A year ago today, I was with him. He's a pretty big content creator for X, and he was a hardcore Trump supporter. And he's turned on Trump because of the Epstein files, and he basically doesn't trust, and he feels betrayed. He feels completely betrayed. And he turns because he got so angry with him about the Epstein thing. He basically is like, he's yelling about the fact that Trump has eroded the guardrails of watching out for big government and having government merge different agencies, and that those guardrails are never going to be re-erected when we have a Democrat there. And even if you like what he's doing now, you're going to hate what the Democrats are going to do with it when they finally get it back. And that so on the one hand, he's angry that there haven't been enough deportations. On the other hand, he's angry with the way they've gone about the deportations. And his point also was, why not go for the low-hanging fruit? Why is the first place you go into these hostile environments, which you're going to have tons of flack, rather than removing 2 million from focusing all your efforts in year one on removing 2 million from Texas? Where you're going to have support. And I think those are all fair, relatively fair critiques. On the other hand, I think it ignores the fact, like some of his massive, massive accomplishments, like having just even the concept of having net immigration, whatever. Yeah. I mean, he questions whether he doesn't trust the numbers that there's been 1.9 million or something like that, self deportations. But he's like, how does anyone know that that's true? And I mean, so much of MAGA has become like this libertarian, cynical, don't trust Charlie Kirk narrative, don't trust, assuming that what folks call the woke right, and it's created a split that exists now, which really was birthed because of the Epstein debacle. Mm. So, on the other hand, he's had so many massive wins, certainly in the international stage with his treaties, with us, things of that nature. But I want to cover a couple of chats that came in here.
By the way, how are you doing?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm good. I would say I'm good. That's how I classify. I'm content.
Okay.
I think that's yeah. Thank God. I appreciate the fact that I recognize that that one day I'll be looking back at this time in my life as the good old days and trying to savor it.
That's true.
I will. I'm gonna be looking back, I'll be looking back at this period of my life as the good old days. So I'm trying to do everything I can to savor it. Thank God I'm blessed with a beautiful, phenomenal wife and phenomenal kids and able to pay my bills doing what I love doing. So, these are the good old days.
There you go.
Let's oh my gosh.
What's with these random musical cues?
It's my wife fell asleep and she has her phone here, which my son keeps trying to call her over and over again. So that's what you're all hearing. And that's her ringtone, which is some song. So I'm gonna be shutting her phone down now because I can't handle this. It's making me crazy. If I can figure out how to shut down her phone. All right, I'll shut the ringer off. Okay. Anyhow, I have a goal up tonight, which I'm gonna have a 3-hour show, and you can stay for as long as you like. You're welcome to stay the entire time. You can bail whenever you feel.
Sit for about a half hour.
Cool. All right. So Montana Bole says I'll start it off. This is our goal, is to have 15 super chats of $10 or more. Peas and Bo says, here's a couple of shekels. See if we can get Uncivil to come on the show. Look at that. Look at the love. Kimmy, lovely to see the announcement that JD and Usha will welcome a new son in late July. I'm betting they'll name him Charlie.
I didn't see that announcement, but good for them.
Yeah, ours in Congress must act and codify changes. Good luck with that. Good luck. Yeah, I have no confidence in Congress.
So if JD becomes president, then he'll have some very young ones in the White House.
This is true. This is true.
What does Secret Service protection look like for a 3-year-old? That's a good question.
It's probably the nanny.
Does 3-year-old get a code name? Probably.
For sure, like Little Tiger or something like that. There are immigration raids in Idaho, but there are no protests, and the police help them. So I think red state don't have any problems. I agree with you, and that was the counter argument to Diligent, is like they are sweeping people out. You just don't hear about it because the only time you hear about it is when there's confrontation. So why are you assuming that they aren't sweeping through? But I guess you could be sending all these agents to Texas and really cleaning Texas and Idaho and Florida and all these other states out, and then get to work on the north and the coast states, afterwards, just so we can start reducing the numbers. I think they're more fixated on trying to get out the evil ones before fixating on the lower threat type of thing. Well, anyway, so let's I'm going to start off with Trump today, who's very, very excited, celebrating his 1-year anniversary. And to everyone's surprise, he stopped out when we had Carolyn Leavitt supposed to do her press conference. We see a very special surprise guest, and boom, there he is.
Oh, that's a big crowd. It's a lot of people. I think it's like a record. So these are accomplishments. We have a lot of accomplishments. And as you know, this is the anniversary, first anniversary, January 20th. And it's been an amazing period of time. We have a book that I'm not going to read to you, but these are the accomplishments.
Look at that freaking book.
What we've produced. All page after page after page, individual things. I could stand here and read it for a week and we wouldn't be finished. But we've done more than any other administration has done by far in terms of military, in terms of ending wars, in terms of completing wars.
So that was him. That was him when he first came out earlier today. And some of the things that he was throwing, just to give you some moments there.
The press didn't stand for him, did they?
It's doubtful. You don't see any heads popping up, so I'm going to assume that they failed in that regard.
He is a head of state, press. That's pretty protocol. Just reminder.
You'd think, you would think, but I was actually commenting just yesterday about how our recognition of heads of state and our failure to give due respect is something that is a negative change in the world in general. Yeah, I was doing when I was covering. I don't know if you saw the letter he sent to Norway about how they never gave him the Nobel Peace Prize.
I did see that. I thought it was good.
Yeah. And I think his point was, you should be giving me respect just because I'm president of the United States. But putting that aside for a moment, I happen to be really freaking accomplished in what I've done here in this area of peace. And you're still basically treating me like I'm a pariah. It's kind of asinine. And you happen to be folks who are standing in my way. Like, you're not helping me on this whole situation, which is something I don't even know why it's theirs. They got boats landing there. We got boats landing there. Who's to say whose boats were there first? Why is it your place? You can't defend it. We need it. Someone else is going to take it from you.
Maybe he hasn't bombed enough people because Obama got the Nobel Peace Prize after a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, maybe
that's the problem.
Maybe. Well, he was holding up pictures of people who need to be bombed, and that's some of these monsters who he's been trying to deport from our fair country.
People, vicious, many of them murderers.
Are we going to talk about Don Lemon at some point today?
Oh, we will.
Excellent.
When you talk about that war, because people don't know. Do you want to live with these people? International murder.
So he's going through these lists of monsters and basically like, you don't want to live next to them. No one wants to live next to them. But you want to talk about Don Lemon.
Yeah, that guy is such a well. First of all, we already know he's an idiot, but I very much look forward to him and his cohort facing many, many federal charges. This will bring me happiness.
This will. Well, let me give you Trump talk about that today.
Mental institutions from where they came. That's all they want to do. They're patriots, and they have to be abused by guys like Don Lemon, who's a loser, lightweight. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible yesterday. Look at it. 20.
Do you think, so let's talk about Don Lemon's individual culpability there, because now I'm able to consult with another attorney. I'm sure that most of you, but perhaps there's one or two who are not aware that over the weekend, particularly on Sunday mornings during Sunday morning services, Don Lemon filmed himself basically on this, what he called a covert operation, to storm into a church and start screaming in protest, because the pastor is associated with ICE. And they basically decided that they were going to take that service over. So they marched on in there and were blowing their whistles and terrorizing people, yelling at the parishioners, and basically shut down the service from Sunday morning worshipers. So when he was confronted with this whole thing, he basically was saying, well, I'm just a journalist. That's what his defense he's portraying for himself as, I'm a journalist. I can be there. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not the protesters here. So leave me the heck alone. Go talk to the organizers if you have a problem with what happened there. So I'll ask you this. Do you think that that's a valid defense?
I think it can be a valid defense, but I'm not sure it's true in this case. So I think that if a reporter was aware of a crime that was about to happen and was a pure observer, then I think that's fine, because there's no conspiracy. Like, there's no meeting of the minds, right? The reporter isn't going to help or assist, and he's not agreeing to it. He's just there to watch. So I don't think it's necessarily conspiracy, and without more, it's not accessory. So I think that can be the case. I don't think it is the case here, because I think that he crossed the line in his actions and his discussion. Like, he made himself part of it. And when his own reporting, he was talking about how he was going to be part of it and participate in it. And if not conspiracy, I see accessory, where he's encouraging and promoting and, regaling them to engage in this. So I think he has liability in this situation.
He even took steps to ensure that he wasn't going to hurt the covert nature of it. Like he's like,
Yes.
I can't tell you the name of the church. You know, it's like that feels conspiratorial. Like I know where they're going, but we're not going to use the name because we want to make sure this, you know, this comes off. The other element is I think that he has to be, he displayed awareness before he went in there. In one of the clips there where he's talking about the impact of him going into the church.
Yep. He's like, if they see me, they'll know exactly what's up and all the rest of it. Yeah.
And he's afraid that he's going to tip them off that this is like some sort of, you know, thing. And so, and that seems to be like a sort of conspiracy meeting of the minds. And furthermore, he displays awareness of his own impact on the situation. And I don't know how he can get away from the fact that his own impact on the situation is he's ratcheting them up to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I think. Yeah. So that's where you move from. That's where you move into accessory because you're promoting, encouraging, extolling.
Where they may not have done it if they didn't have access to a large audience like his.
Yeah. So that's where I think you cross the line.
Yeah.
So that I think he has liability, and I think there's a probable cause to seize devices and start doing searches and get access to text messages and so forth and so on. Because it seems like on a prima facie, he's more than just a reporter.
Yeah, that he goes from talking about a story to becoming part of the story while it's actually happening. Even some of the conversations he had with the pastor, it seems like he's crossing from being a journalist into trying to make a case on behalf of the protesters, that they have justification for what they're doing in a way that just, it doesn't feel like this is a reporter asking questions, but he's trying to, you know, basically tell them, hey, they're right, you're wrong, you know?
It doesn't have that embedded reporter in Vietnam feel where I'm literally just here to observe. I don't exist. I don't interfere. I just film and report, and that's it.
Right. Where, like, you know, a scientist is trying to make sure that their own observation of the experiment isn't changing the outcome, and he is the cause of the outcome. Like he's so that's if we're looking at it, if we're looking at it from a different, you know, from an analogous type of way. He was talking yesterday and he's still talking today. I'll jump to the Don Lemon portion of this because I have you for a limited time and this is of interest to you. This was Megyn Kelly with James Woods talking about it today.
From Lemon, his thoughts on ICE, Sat 6.
Attention, ICE. Let me just say something that most journalists will not say. They can't say it. I understand that. But I'm an independent journalist now, so I can't say it. Fuck off, ICE. Fuck all the way off. You are low-life losers, and you feel empowered by your dear leader, Donald Trump. You have never had this position of power before, small person, and you are treating people in an inhumane way, and you don't even understand why, because you're too dumb to figure it out. You are the poorly.
Are you going to explain it to us?
Trump loves. That's who you are. And you're out there doing his bidding, doing things that are illegal, doing
like
things
what?
that are unconstitutional,
no one knows.
doing things that are inhumane, like
what?
killing someone because you're pissed off. You are fat fuck losers who just crawled out of a trailer park from some Proud Boy meeting, or if not worse.
You know who lives in trailer parks?
That was actually before. That was a couple of weeks ago. That was before. That's before he went there. None of this helps him. None of this helps him. This guy has created a firestorm of bases to base. Now, if this were to come up at trial, the defense would try to keep it out as inflammatory, but prosecution is likely to say he's displaying his mens rea here, that he's
goes to state of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's basically is showing where he's coming from, that he's not looking to be an independent reporter, but that he's looking to influence exactly what was influenced here. He's looking to help ratchet this up. So I think this guy has serious potential legal exposure here. And frankly, if he gets hit
for it,
we are all.
But you know, we don't need to answer the question right off the bat, because we can just start with everyone else, right? We'll start with the leader and anyone else we can identify. We'll go to their houses, seize their computers, devices, which will get us access to the text messages, and then we can get Lemon later. It's fine.
Yeah. I think that's I don't think we're going to need to rely on what the public has seen so far to get a conviction. And there likely is enough there for a conviction. But I think that once they actually start digging through his phones and the phones of the leader, and probably get someone to flip, you know, they'll probably get someone to flip even. I think that you're looking at this being something that Don Lemon, that guy needs a friggin' lawyer really bad. Assuming Pam Bondi ever does anything.
It's not me. That's okay. I'm out. I don't want to represent you.
Let me convince you how important it is that you start representing Don Lemon.
I'm not your man, Don. If Bondi needs another body over at DOJ, let me know.
Anyway, T-Rex saying, I used to really like Megyn Kelly, but unfortunately I think she's more worried about losing an audience than anything else, and it affects the quality of her show and her opinions. Yeah, I've smelled that also. There's a growing number of people who are coming to that conclusion. Look, you know, this is what I think is the healthiest way to I'm glad you brought this up, T-Rex, because I think this is an important there's an important life lesson which applies in so many different ways, and I want to urge every one of you to just consider this. Okay, we have a natural tendency towards saying, I like this guy or girl or whatever, and you know, we're watching someone, in particular in political arena, and we're like, I like this guy or I don't like this guy, and that's a natural thing that people do. You're almost trained to do that from birth, right? I like this team. I like this player. I don't like this player. I like this kid in my class. From the time you're a little kid, you're basically trained to classify people as folks you like or dislike. So it's very natural for I think the overwhelming majority of people approach, when it comes to personalities covering politics, to come in with this type of approach. In fact, I would be surprised if I would think 98% of all people come in with this type of perspective. And yeah, I think that who you like or dislike certainly should be something that would influence how regularly you watch them. I'm simply saying, I'm urging each and every one of you to try and handle things like issue by issue. Like, I'll see some people and I'm like, okay, look, on this issue, I think this guy's an idiot. I think he's just like blinded. That doesn't mean I dislike the person. Like the guy I was arguing with yesterday, Diligent Dennis, and I spent an hour and a half yelling at this guy. And I finished off by telling him, I still consider you a friend. Still love you, brother. It's like, you know, I just think you're dead wrong in this. I think your mind got poisoned by, you know, by a couple of incidents. And, you know, I recognize you're searching for truth. I just feel as if you're very cynical because you became jaded by a couple of events that happened over the last year, which have basically affected you. But, you know, I can see him coming to conclusions and bringing up points that I hadn't considered before, which helped me better flesh out, you know, and have a better rounded opinion. Like one of the things he pointed out is he was like, you know, he said these EOs are eroding the guardrails between different federal agencies until they become one big massive blob. And once he's out of office, you might like it when they're using that to get rid of illegal aliens. You're not going to like it when they're using it to surveil you 6 years from now under a different administration. And you know, you're not going to like the big mass of government where they're sharing all their information and coordinating with each other as to how to try and bring charges against you. And this is all being set up because these dividers between, let's say, ATF, IRS, FBI, DHS, all of them are being eroded for the purpose of deporting illegals. And once that erosion happens, we're not going to like the result of how these agencies are all working with each other hand in glove in the future. My counter to that is I think it's naive to assume that they weren't eroded beforehand. You think that they were all working so independently of each other beforehand? I don't think that that's true. I don't think this is like a new thing. This is like, oh, this is a novel thing. And I also realized that, hey, if you're going to send ICE agents into a dangerous area, you probably need a National Guard or folks who are going to be guarding them, because that's not their role, is, you know, their own security. So how are you going to do that without having that be interagency? You're going to need to do that at some point. to go into Minnesota, to go into California, to go into New York, to go into Illinois, to go into Michigan, to go into all these hostile environments. You're going to need to have interagency action here in order to secure the people who are looking to remove these hostile folks. So what do you think is going to happen? Eventually it's going to happen, even if you want to start in Texas. Okay, you start in Texas, you can start in Texas and Florida. What are you going to do about the entire?
Well, you say Texas, but then you say what parts of Texas, because the big cities in Texas are Democrat, particularly Houston and Austin. I don't know, I'm sure about Dallas, but I bet it doesn't run particularly. I bet it's pretty blue over there in Dallas too. So yeah, you go to the big cities, you're going to have issues.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, I think they're talking about the governors being sympathetic and operating with you, like turning over lists of, let's say they arrest illegal aliens and turning over those lists rather than sheltering them from ICE, which is what we've seen Tim Walz do. We've seen Kathy Hochul do and Gavin Newsom do. So that's probably what he's referring to. You can just go and just mass deport, say, okay, here's a list of 100 names that, we're coming into the prison and basically saying, you get the hell out and just get them on a plane and remove them. So you can't do that in New York or Illinois or Minnesota. But okay, you can't. This is when I was hearing these complaints, the point that I was making back was, hey, look, once you remove this guy from Texas, you can't remove him a second time. Meaning, okay, you got to get to the other people. You're scooping up from there, but you also got to be going to these difficult states also. So I think that. But the reason I started talking about all this, the point that I was really getting at is, so I can. It's not a matter of whether I like diligent or not. I sort of need to hear someone expressing their opinion on a topic and just be like, okay, this makes sense to me. This resonates with me. Or no, this person is an idiot. And, hear all the reasons why. It's so critical, instead of just saying like, I like this person or I dislike this person, just bringing it back to what that super chat was talking about. That I think it's essential to say, on this thing, I think that their perspective is kind of screwed up. I agree with them about a lot of things, but on this issue, I don't see eye to eye. That doesn't mean I'm never going to listen to the person again. I'm just on this topic. I think they're dead wrong, and to feel conviction in your own mind as to like what makes sense, like what's a logical approach. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you, man.
18 U.S.C. 241, conspiracy against rights, lemon law.
Cute, very nice.
That is nice. I like the brand new lemon law. Yeah. Zan says, Joe, Texas is deporting a ton of people. We're just working with them and sending them to ICE while the blue states force them to do raids. Way to go on 1,000 pounds, Kurt. Indeed.
Yeah,
yes.
I'm still at the gym. I'm still hitting it too. I had a nice little session today. I switched to a bodybuilding powerlifting mix, and I'm still trying to grow, man. But it's a lot of fun.
Have you been fighting the weight?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I started taking Zepbound again, so that seems to be helping.
Cool. Uzelian also says, these will be the first few black people convicted with an act that was supposed to protect them in a way. I also disagree with Kurt. This isn't what has happened to Blaze reporters on J6. Oh, so he's saying I think what he's trying to say is they could have taken Blaze reporters and thrown them in jail for participating in J6. So in that sense, you're punishing Don Lemon, or you're advocating for punishing Don Lemon in a way that the Blaze reporters were not punished on J6.
Well, see, I don't know what the Blaze reporters were doing specifically. I covered a lot of cases relating to Jan 6, but I can't recall off the top of my head specifically what the Blaze reporters were or were not doing. So I'm not sure how good the analog is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the analogy is kind of poor. I don't think anyone on J6 was like, "Oh, I'm doing this because Blaze is here. Let me reach out to Blaze and tell him I plan on going into the Capitol. This is what I'm going to be doing." That's not what was. That's a very stark contrast from the current situation here with City's Church, where they basically were like, "Hey, you know what? We're going to be at the staging ground with you." I mean, this guy literally showing up at the staging ground for where they're heading off to the church. That's now far more complicit in like what's happening here than any particular individuals who went into the Capitol on J6, right? As far as we know. So I think that does change the nature as to like what's happening here when you're in on it from the beginning and there in the staging ground. To me, it feels much shadier, like much shadier. But I like that my viewers are able to take a constitutional approach even with respect to their enemies. That's a very healthy thing that is.
It is a good thing. We should try to be consistent, try to apply the rule of law consistently. So yes, I tend to agree.
All right, so I want to continue on by sharing with you all some more from today. This is I started the show up by showing that there's a movie coming out about Melania, her autobiography, and she actually shared out a tweet today about her first reflecting back on a year ago, which I wanted to share with you all. It's a short little thing here. That was her outfit on. Why is this not going? All right. Is this really no audio? I don't hear any audio. This is her journal from like that day. I actually saw Fans. You know Fans from Allegan News? I'm sure he watches your show. I bumped into him while we were watching at the inauguration and was like hanging out with him and his wonderful family. And this is kind of sweet. That was where I was. The Liberty Ball or Starlight Ball? I don't remember. I think it was the Liberty Ball is where I saw them. Anyhow, so that's from her memoirs of like a year ago, which I thought that was just like a nice little thing. And today Trump was very excited, and you saw him share that book of his about all his accomplishments. And on whitehouse.gov, he broke this out: 365 wins in 365 days. President Trump's return marks new era of success and prosperity, and he numbers them.
Cool, fair enough. Like it.
Yeah. Starting off with what is probably his most impressive thing is shutting that border down. Like it's 99% shut down.
Yeah. And all it took was the will to try. This is the thing that just continuously amazes me. Biden's like, I can't do it without a new law. I can't do it without Congress. Gotta get, and Trump's like, let me show you what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is. It's an astonishing thing because they said the only reason that the border is still open is because he shut down that bill that they had put out in 2024. Remember, they're all screaming, "Oh, he kiboshed it. It had bipartisan support." That bill mandated that the border remain open basically forever.
Yeah.
We have 42,000 people a month have to be able to come in here.
Yep, I remember.
And they're like, it's impossible to do it without having more border agents and all this added funding. And he basically was like, all right, hold my beer. And that's amazing. So he lists off here, they achieved negative net migration in 2025, reversing a 50-year trend and restoring U.S. control of immigration flows for the first time in a generation. Removed more than 2.6 million illegal aliens, carried out over 600,000 arrest, detentions, and deportations. The other 1.9 million were via self-deport. And honestly, I don't care. I don't care if it's self-deport. I just want them gone. Just get them out. I don't care. If they want to leave on their own, God bless. Deported more than 400,000 illegal aliens charged with or convicted of crimes. Induced 2 million self-deportations by ending Biden-era release. One of my favorite things was how he took the Biden app and flipped it on its head from basically being like a rapid immigration into a here's your deportation. It was genius. Just genius. Reduced illegal border crossings to the lowest level since the 70s. Cut fentanyl trafficking at the southern border by 56%. Permanently ended dangerous catch and release policies. Maintained zero illegal alien releases in the country's homeland for 8 consecutive months. Declared a national border emergency on day one, unlocking the authorities and resources needed to restore order. Deployed National Guard and active duty military forces at the southern border. Immediately resumed construction of the border wall with dozens of miles of new construction underway already completed. Reinstated the successful Remain in Mexico policy. Repurposed the failed Biden-era CBP-1, this is what I was just referring to, from a mass entry tool into a self-deportation facilitation mechanism. 99% year-over-year collapse of the Darien Gap migration traffic, stemming the tide of illegal alien traffic directly at the source. Revoked over 100,000 visas tied to fraud, criminal activity, or national security concerns. Revoked visas tied to pro-Hamas agitators. Paused visa processing for 75 high-risk countries. Blocked more than 10,000 individuals with narco-terrorism. Conducting 206 million benefits eligibility checks to ensure taxpayer-funded programs only serve American lawful residents. Terminated federal benefits for at least 1.4 million illegal aliens. Cut the number of new foreign students in the U.S. by 17%. Removed 270. Really, that number of new foreign students should be cut by like 100%. That's what he should be doing. This is one of the areas I'm frustrated with him. That it's like, what does that mean, cut by 17%? I want them all gone. Why are you bringing more in here? I just don't need that. Removed 275,000 illegal aliens from Social Security rolls. I didn't even know about that. Did you know that there were 275,000 illegal aliens on Social Security rolls? Expanding ICE enforcement capacity through aggressive hiring. We're just on the immigration. This is just on the immigration front that he's listing all these off. Expanding federal detention capacity nationwide. Enforced English language proficiency requirements for commercial truck drivers. Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Restored the DHS Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement Office to provide direct support to victims of illegal alien crime. Rescued 62,000 missing migrant children from trafficking, forced labor, and exploitation. Remember, we're all screaming, where are the children? Where are the children? Well, he started rescuing some of them. Drove the number of unaccompanied illegal immigrant children across the country to a record low. Invoked the Alien Enemies Act. Revoked TPS status for 500,000 migrants. A decision upheld by the Supreme Court. Immediately suspended refugee resettlement and dramatically lowered the number of refugees allowed in the country. And it goes on and on. On and on. I'm not going to go through all 365 because, well, you can go through them yourself. He talks about the steps he took to make America safe, to rebuild the economy, driving down gas prices, creating 654,000 private sector jobs, not government jobs where we're hiring you, but private sector jobs. And I don't even see where he references the driving down the price of eggs, because a year ago we were paying like, $6 a carton if we were like lucky, and then it went up to like an $8 high under him, and then now it's like down at $2.50. Securing 10 trillion new domestic investment.
He has done a lot with respect to investments, and I'm sure it's on this list somewhere, with drug companies in particular. It's been awesome, and trying to get us most favored nation status so we don't get ripped off anymore. That was pretty big.
That was an EO he signed during the waning months of his first term that Biden ripped up on day one, and then spent the next 4 years trying to figure out how to get down drug prices. When Trump had done it with a swish of his pen, and he ripped it up because it had Trump's name on it. Yeah, that's actually, it's one of the things I brought up last night when I was on that space. I was like, if you folks aren't realizing just how ridiculously obstructionist and how insane the left is with anything that has Trump's name on it, where they will take a 180-degree opposite perspective on an issue from what they themselves, you have Chuck Schumer, what he said 10 years ago, and what he's saying today is exactly the opposite just because Trump is in the White House. So how is it that you're supposed to negotiate with this? How are you supposed to work past a filibuster? And if you do work past the filibuster, it's only by giving them all sorts of crap we don't want him giving, like billions of dollars in foreign aid. That's the only way you get them to sign on to anything. So he has been ruling by fiat. He has been ruling by EO. And frankly, it's much better than him passing laws where he's caving to these jackasses who are all demanding that he give them, he gives billions of dollars in directions that you and I don't want to waste that kind of money. So
yeah, I wish he had done a little bit more with it. I understand Elon Musk's frustration, because he felt like a lot of his good work was being undone by the budget.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I have a problem with the big, beautiful bill. There's a lot in there that I don't like. And billions going in going out of leaving our country. And some of I don't like having the smaller our government, the better it is. But overall, our economy is in a healthier place today than it was a year ago.
Yep.
That's no question. Championing American workers in American industry. This is where we talk about the tariff revenues. So I want to talk to you about tariffs because you brought up tariffs. So let's talk a little bit about that. So you hate tariffs as a general rule?
I don't quite understand what they're meant to accomplish. I don't really understand their broad application, that the way that they were done. And I don't really understand the end goals that they're meant to accomplish because the end goals seem muddled. Like on the one hand, they'll talk about, well, it's meant to bring in revenue. It's like, well, it only brings in revenue if there's imports. But on the other hand, he'll say, well, it's meant to increase domestic manufacturing. I'm like, well, that's a contrary goal, or at least
100%. 100%. It is.
It's like there won't be any imports if they're domestic, right? And it just felt very broad and like without any particular, like if it had been targeted, like with China, we're really upset that China is making cheap goods and dumping stuff, and we consider them a medium-term threat. And they're, so we're going to put it on China. That would have made more sense, but this across the board thing didn't really make any sense. And we even had tariffs on countries where we're net compared to like we actually aren't at disadvantage, but we still put tariffs on them anyway. It didn't make any sense.
So I might be able to answer some of your questions there. I think that with respect to some countries, the tariffs are designed to basically increase our domestic manufacturing. And let me just clarify what Kurt's question is for those of you who are not understanding the economics of it. If you don't have like any sort of background in economics, you might be a little bit confused by what he's saying. So tariffs are obviously taxes that are charged to goods that are being imported here into this country. If you end up charging very high rates, it becomes prohibitive. There's no way that the foreign company, when they're shipping their goods here, presumably, there's no way that they can match the American production. So no one ends up buying them. Because basically, all of a sudden, something that a hat that used to cost $7 now costs $30, and you can get a very similar type of hat that's American made for $15. So the American now ends up paying $15 instead of $7. You don't end up making the money on tariffs because no one's buying the $30 hat. The only way that you're actually making money is if people are buying the hat. So that type of tariff is prohibitive in that it stops the consumers, the American consumers, from buying it. So now we're not making any tariff revenue. What ultimately ends up happening is no one ends up paying the tariff because no one ends up buying the goods, and they basically just stop selling it here. So that's a tariff that's prohibitive. It's restrictive. It's trying to keep, let's say, China in this instance from sending us those hats, so that this way, and now the American consumer is going to be buying American hats and paying more money for it than he would from China, and this way it becomes American made. And a different way of looking at tariffs is if we jack up tariffs, but not so crazy high, enough that people will be buying it, but still there's money coming in. Now that could theoretically, so it's not like you're quadrupling the price of the hat, but now what you're basically doing is saying, you know what, we're going to fatten our coffers and raise, it's basically adding a tax on goods from France or all these other countries and saying we're going to be using that. So now the consumer who wants to buy those foreign goods is going to end up basically kicking an extra few pennies in or a few dollars in, every time you're buying something that's not made in America, and that will help fatten our coffers. That's when you're talking about a type of tariff that's not so prohibitive. It's more revenue generating for our government. So those are two opposite type of things. It's like, are you trying to stop consumers from buying the product, or you're just trying to make them pay a little bit more? And I think it really depends on the nation. I think it depends on the country we're talking about. I think there is an effort to try and freeze out China, which we probably should be freezing them out, and that's why we had such high taxes. And with respect to the EU, I think that in certain industries, like the auto industry, he's pissed off at them that they have kept out the American car makers from being able to sell in Europe. If you go to Europe, you will not see any American cars. It's not because they basically are like, oh, we hate American cars. It's because their duties, their taxes on American cars are so insane that they basically made it impossible for anyone in Belgium or France or England or any of these other European nations to buy an American car without paying 3 times what you would pay for it. So why would they buy that when they can buy a European car at a far lower price, a similar European car at a far lower price? So he's like, look, if that's what you're going to do to American cars, I'm going to do that to your French cars, your Italian cars, your British cars, and your German cars, and I'm going to basically punish you so that, or we can all start lowering our tariffs mutually, and that way we actually get on the same page where now the American auto manufacturer can actually make some money selling cars in Europe as opposed to being frozen out of your markets. So I think in that sense, he's trying to use it as a bludgeon to punish them for what he felt were unfair trade practices that other nations had with us. And I like that. I think that's good for Ford. It's good for Tesla. It's good for these different companies that we have here domestically, that they should be able to compete on the international stage, and because he's bludgeoning them for what they're doing. Doesn't that make sense?
Yep.
So in that sense, those tariffs make sense to you, right?
Yeah, well, if that's what we were trying to do, but again, like, this was not well communicated, and it was an across the board thing. It was just a flat rate, and it wasn't segmented, and there was no attempt to like delineate the way that you're setting it out.
No,
So I think you're trying to back end something that wasn't really there.
Well, I'm not trying to back end. It's like he sort of would mention the car industry in one moment, and then in a completely different interview or a day later, he'd be talking about a different issue with respect to how we have such a huge trade deficit with China. So I think that you sort of like I'm able to, because I'm following this on such, so closely, I'm able to basically see, okay, look, the tariffs here is meant to do that, and there it's meant to do something else. And so you can call it that I'm trying to brown nose face guard, protect, cult loving MAGA guy, or it's like, look, this is based on the numbers he's doing. This is what I can glean, and the words I've heard him say. This is what I can glean makes sense as to what his strategy is. That doesn't mean his strategy with China versus how he deals with Italy versus how he deals with Indonesia is correct.
I would have bought that. I would have bought this idea if the rates between countries were more discrete, but he just applied one big formula without any attempt to account for, like, this is because of auto, or this is because of wheat, or this is because of electronics, or this is because it was just a static formula that was it was a very blunt instrument.
Okay. All right. I think it's possible, given how, if you ever read The Art of the Deal, I think he basically felt like, if I start off very heavy, they'll come to me. If I start off with a very punitive type of tariff, they'll start negotiating with me, and it'll give me leverage to negotiate with them in ways that will be favorable to the American consumer or the American manufacturer. So I think that's why he came off with that. Here, boom, this is all coming on June 1, and and I think it was his objective was that he wanted to be able to use it as a negotiating ploy for dealing with these different nations.
Also, I have a very technical bugaboo that is not a Trump problem, but something I'd like Trump to fix. In order for something to be made in America, it has to be basically 100% made in America, which is very, very difficult, because it's like every single component has to be manufactured. There's basically a de minimis exception, but it's very hard to qualify. And most countries don't have this. Like, for example, a Swiss watch, in order for it to be classified as Swiss made, it only has to be like 80% Swiss or something. I forget what the number is, but because of this. So I would really like it if they change the rules for what made in America. So it could be something a little bit less than 100%. So we could actually have some stuff made in America, because we're making it so impossible right now.
Right.
So that's a very technical bugaboo. The FTC needs to fix this problem.
Right. So you're saying, like, if some of a percentage of the products of a component in a blender are made in America, in that case, that should be offsetting.
Yeah, so in order for it to be made in America right now, like 100% of that blender has to be made in America. Every single component has to be made, every single part made, manufactured, assembled, the whole 9 yards, like everything. And
Right.
like this is a little much. So it's like if we could make it like 80% just as an arbitrary number, it would mean a lot more stuff could be made in America because they could put the label on it without it being so impossible.
Right.
And most other countries do this, so it's not like a unique idea.
Uzelian is saying the reason it does make sense is the same reason Penguin Island made sense. Nintendo will make the Switch in China and then send it to Penguin Island. Then there's no tariff on them. Which I don't know if you remember that there was this whole issue that he was like basically charging tariffs on countries that have no people, just like penguins. And the logic behind that was that he didn't want there to be stopovers from other countries that are being heavily tariffed. And then basically saying, oh, it's not coming from China, it's coming from Penguin Island. So there's no tariffs now. So that's why he basically, like there was an attempt, there was, we've seen logic. It's just, I agree with you. He doesn't always communicate. I'm less bothered by that in the sense that I don't think it's necessarily helpful to a negotiator to be constantly apprising the entire world as to what is going through his head while he's negotiating. I sort of want to give him the room to operate the same way I would give a skilled attorney room to operate as to like when you drop a particular little nugget versus refrain from dropping that nugget so that it's able to use it more to his advantage. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that, but it's just a question mark in my mind.
Right.
That's where I started. It's like it's one major thing where I'm like, I don't know that I really support this, and I'm pretty sure it's not legal, as the Supreme Court's about to inform them anyway.
Right.
So the whole thing might be a bit moot. So,
and the reason it's illegal, I think this is a shortcoming in the Constitution itself. I think that you're right. Like if I was sitting as a judge reading the Constitution, I think I would conclude that he doesn't have the authority to do this. But I think that this is one of the areas that I think the founders really got it wrong. And that's because of the fact that they sort of looked at tariffs exclusively as a taxing type of thing rather than a negotiation tool between countries. Because if you're looking at tariffs as a negotiation tool between countries, then that should be the exclusive domain of the president, not Congress. If you're looking at it as a money-raising tool, then it makes sense that that's the domain of Congress. And I think that they were limited in their perspective in assuming that that's how it would be used and didn't really consider the idea of as to the power. Because at the time, we were such a fledgling country. I don't think they appreciated that we would ever grow to be the size that we are and the significance of the American consumer as far as how that could assist the president in his negotiations with foreign nations.
Yeah, I hear that.
So maybe it wasn't a shortcoming, rather in given the present day status in the 18th century America, but over the long haul, considering the growth that America has had, the financial growth that America has had over the last quarter of a millennium, I think that it's something that leaves the Constitution a little bit short-sighted and outdated, given the growth that we've had. So.
Perhaps, but the law's the law, so we are where we are. So.
That's correct. You're right. And unless there's a change to the Constitution, that is the law. I get very annoyed with the likes of Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. Like I'm just like, you guys are like so stupid. Even if you want to tell me that, hey, this is not your power, this is Congress's power. Okay, but then why are you standing against him on it? Meaning, you want to tell me it's Congress's power, that's fine. Why are you not there saying, okay, it's our power and we want to give him the authority to negotiate this? That's the problem I have. So, someone like Rand Paul is coming out there screaming, saying, no, he doesn't have this authority. This is our authority. Okay, it's your authority. Why are you not your authority to approve what he's doing? Why aren't you approving it? Like, why do you have a problem with what he's doing? And that's what bothers me. But Heisenberg says you need to bring all materials into the U.S. or source them internally. There's no tariff on products in the U.S. Why wouldn't the source materials be tariffed? So I think we're talking about if they're assembled outside the United States, but they're using American products. So basically, if you're talking about a situation where, let's say the motor for a car is produced here, or the steel of a car is produced here, and then that steel is shipped to shipped to Germany, and they use that steel to build motors. So that should be offsetting the whatever tariffs are going to be charged for Mercedes. And I'm obviously just I'm inventing hypotheticals here, but because it's being manufactured in Germany, even if they're using our sound system, an American sound system, that they are going to basically ignore that on the tariffing end, which seems from Uncivil's perspective to be unfair. Is that what, did I assess that correctly?
And I think also one of the reasons that with respect to the communication issue and the negotiation issue, one of the other problems that the lack of information or lack of clarity poses is that other countries and other companies in the world, if there's no certainty about what's going to happen, are unlikely to make decisions to like shift things around unless they understand what the long term is, right? So, for example, if I don't know, pick your company of choice, BMW. I don't know. If I'm BMW and looking to build a new plant somewhere, it's like, unless I understand, what the rules are exactly, I'm unlikely to make major capital investments because they're, building that plant's going to take me 7 years and, a huge capital outlay. And, what is the situation going to be like 7 years from now? So without understanding the parameters of the tariffs or what they're trying to establish or what they're trying to accomplish, like, because it's so chaotic, that might leave other leaders scratching their heads, but it leaves other companies scratching their heads. And so the safest thing to do if you're a company is to not make significant capital investments because there's too much uncertainty, and just wait it out.
Right.
So that's a problem. So the tariffs are unlikely to accomplish their goal because no one really understands what the goal is, and because they can't understand the goal, they can't forecast around it. And also Trump seems to be like changing his mind. Like recently he reduced the tariffs on the Swiss because Rolex gave him a nice clock. And so he reduced the tariffs on the Swiss because of that. And so they're like, they're not going to make major outlays because they don't understand what the rules of the game are.
I agree with you that businesses tend to be risk averse, and the ever-changing nature of tariffs are very counterproductive in the sense of encouraging business people to want to invest here. I just think, like, if I had, if I was running a massive company and you're telling me that, do I want to make massive investments somewhere where I don't know that they're not going to change their rules a year after I throw all that money in there, then that's very disconcerting. So you're right. That is a that is a concern. J.H. Schwalbeck says, Joey. Jojo, F Greenland. Trump needs to invade California. We're dying out here. $4.53 a gallon. Highest income tax. $18 billion in debt. Please invade us. He needs to get out here now. No voter ID, mail-in ballots. Listen, I understand. You're a hostage. He is. This is. I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something.
You chose to live in that unfortunate state.
Well, I was going to take a different perspective, and I was going to tell JH and Gavin Newsom that I have I have a certain group of skills that I developed over the years. And if you let JH go now, that will be the end of this, and we'll forget about it. But if you cannot remedy this situation soon, I will make sure that you are going to be removed from office peacefully and lawfully. I'm not about to commit a crime here.
Well, I think now's a good time for me to sign off so I can get my beauty sleep, my friend. But it's been fun.
It's been great seeing you, Kurt. Thank you so much for stopping in. Yes, yeah, you can swing by, shoot over an invite to me. I'll be happy to pop in on you as well.
All right, talk to you later, my friend.
Take care. Have a good night, my friend.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Da, 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 da. See, it's stuck in my head. I can't get it out. What am I going to do? At least she doesn't sound as bad as the autistic senator from Hawaii. Hirono is a disaster. I can't with her. I can't. We were going through the different accomplishments, and I didn't even get to my favorite one while Kurt was still here, but you will see it. It's coming up very soon. Not very soon, but I'm going to run through this a little bit faster. So he reduced the trade deficit to its lowest since 2009. This is, again, we're going through the different accomplishments. In case you joined late, this is what Trump listed his 365 accomplishments in 365 days. It started off by talking about his success on the border and with deportations, and now he's covering different accomplishments in the area of our economy. Expanding domestic semiconductor manufacturing capacity so we won't have to defend Taiwan. I do want to igniting American innovation technology, solidify the U.S. position as a world leader in AI, attracting $2.7 trillion in tech and AI investment. That's an insane number. Secured $90 billion in AI and energy investment in Pennsylvania alone. Reached a deal for the U.S. government to acquire 10% stake in chip maker Intel. Launched the Presidential Artificial Intelligence Challenge, inviting K through 12 students and educators across America to participate. I don't know what the Presidential AI Challenge is, to be honest with you. I have no idea what that is. Then he is reasserting American leadership on the world stage. And this is where he gets into his different peace deals that he did, ending the Israel-Hamas war and imposed a ceasefire framework, brokered the end to a 12-day war between Israel and Iran, brokered peace between Armenia and Azerbaijan, brokered peace between India and Pakistan, brokered peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. And these countries all admit that, yeah, he did this. No Nobel Peace Prize. It's insane. There's no person who's brokered as many peace deals as he has, and it's just a humiliation for the Nobel folks, the folks at Nobel. Broker peace between Cambodia and Thailand. Broker normalization between Kosovo and Serbia. I'm going to point out this guy could literally cure cancer, and they would not give him a Nobel Prize in scientific achievement. Brokered peace between Egypt and Ethiopia, established a U.S.-backed framework to end the Ukraine-Russia war, setting enforceable ceasefire benchmarks and reconstruction incentives, restored maximum pressure on Iran, destroyed Iran's nuclear weapons capability through coordinated military action, directed the Secretary of State to declare U.S. foreign policy will always put America and American citizens first, declared all foreign policy must be conducted under the president's direction, ensuring career diplomats reflect our foreign policy at all times. Initiated process to build next generation Golden Dome missile defense system. I don't know that we have a need for a Golden Dome missiles defense system, but that's a reference to, if you're unfamiliar, in the state of Israel, they have what's called the Iron Dome, which is why it's funny that Trump would call ours the Golden Dome. The Iron Dome, what its objective is to shoot down missiles that are coming into America. It's a brilliant targeting system. And it's brilliant in that it instantly identifies when a missile is fired up into the air, whether it's going to land in a populated area or not. And if it's not going to land, if it's going to land in some hillside that no one's living there, it just lets it land. And because every shot if it's going to hit some area that's populated, it intercepts it and blows it up in the sky. This is a genius type of defense system. It's unbelievable what it's able to do. Now, every shot it fires is expensive. I think it's like $1 million a shot. So every shot it fires is expensive, which is why they don't want to just waste them shooting down every missile, because that would just become insanely prohibitive. But it's saved countless lives, thousands of people. So now the question is, should we have something like that here in America? I don't know that would work on nuclear weapons. I don't know. If it's not working on nuclear weapons, I mean, this is part of the advantage that we here in America have, that there's no superpower in our hemisphere I guess technically Europe's in our hemisphere, but we got a big freaking massive ocean between us and the next superpower who might ever be like a threat to us. So that affords a great deal of time to see if there are missiles incoming here. I guess in theory, someone could sneak up 100 miles off the coast. I think we would know about that. I think that we would probably know about that. But so what if in fact no one's able to launch anything at us? Look, I guess if it can stop nuclear weapons, a Golden Dome would make a lot of sense. That would make a lot of sense. You tell me you can shoot it down over the Atlantic, 300 miles off the coast. That would make sense. I guess that would make sense if it has that capacity. Added 29 new reward offers for designated targets under narcotics. Okay, I want to sort of scooch along here. He goes about his success in Venezuela, getting the turnover 30 to 50 million barrels of sanctioned oil to the U.S. I'm sure he's got somewhere in here about capture of Maduro. Securing the release of political prisoners in Nicaragua and Venezuela. Secure the release of 85 detained Americans abroad. He secured release of military from Russia. Remember that prisoner who he got released from Russia during his first month? I mean, you really can't deny that this guy has had a ton of accomplishments. He has. There's a lot of things you can criticize, like you. And I'm going to come to the things that he should be criticized for. But he has had, especially when it comes to international affairs, just unbelievable accomplishments. Banned funding to UNRWA. Employed hundreds of Hamas and Jihad operatives, imposed sanctions of the International Criminal Court, which has illegitimately asserted jurisdiction over internal U.S. matters. Then he gets into how he strengthened our military force, where he basically has recruitment goals we're surging our recruitment in ways that Biden could only, fantasize about, and improving our overall military readiness. Delivering the 1776 war redeviant to nearly 1.5 million service members, reduced VA benefits backlog by 60%. These are significant accomplishments. Reducing the benefits backlog by 60% through management reform and accountability. These are amazing accomplishments. To me, restoring Fort Liberty, North Carolina to Fort Bragg, that's a much smaller accomplishment than making sure our veterans are able to get their proper health benefits. Then it gets into making government work for the people. Saved an estimated $215 billion, equivalent to $13.35 per U.S. taxpayer through the Trump administration's government efficiency efforts. Signed 228 executive orders rapidly implementing core campaign promises. Eliminated discriminatory DEI, eliminated race and sex-based hiring preferences in the executive branch. We're getting very close to my favorite thing on this list. Very, very close. I'll tell you right now, my favorite thing on this list is number 243. You're going to laugh. You're going to laugh. Trump is freaking hilarious. Directed agencies to dismantle Biden-era federal censorship operations, ended federal funding for chemical and surgical gender procedures, basically knocking out funding for the trans, for minors through executive action, driving the end of these harmful procedures, made the official policy of his government that there are only two sexes, pardoned pro-life Americans who were wrongly targeted. He pardoned, obviously, all the J6 people, which that's going to be here. Dramatically downsized the scope of federal government. Like I said, it goes on and on. But my favorite thing on this list is number 243. Number 243, which is strip notorious crackhead and grifter Hunter Biden of his taxpayer-funded Secret Service detail. my God. This is one of my 365 accomplishments. I stripped notorious crackhead and grifter Hunter Biden of his taxpayer-funded Secret Service detail. That's funny. That's really funny. Why'd you become president? Well, we had to make sure that that crackheaded grifter didn't have a Secret Service. Anyway, so he goes through 365 different accomplishments in this whole thing. The next section here is going through, like I said, this is a little knock here. Fauci's terminate all Beagle experiments at NIH. He gets into making America healthy again. Implemented most favored nation drug pricing, securing deals with 16 of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies to guarantee Americans pay the same low prices other developed nations received. Signed the whole milk for healthy kids. Phased out 8 artificial food dyes and improved 4 natural replacements. Getting Walmart, Hershey, and Nestle to eliminate artificial dyes. Expanding access to in vitro fertilization. Various research plans that he approved. Unleashing American energy dominance and common sense. Immediately declare a national energy emergency to unlock America's full energy potential and bring down costs for American families. Set a new liquefied natural gas export record. Reverse Biden-era drilling restrictions. Reopen hundreds of millions of acres of oil, gas, and coal production. Announced the opening of 13.1 million more acres of federal land for coal leasing, tripling benchmarks set by the One Big Beautiful Bill. Record domestic oil and natural gas production, and on and on, which, like I said, he's had a lot of accomplishments. The last one is announced new hunting opportunities across 87,000 acres. So there you go. There you go. It's been a very, very busy year for our dear president. Very busy year indeed. AF1 returning to JBA due to electrical issue. They're going to land. Air Force One is returning to JBA due to electrical issue. They're going to land and change to a different plane and head back out to Davos, according to the White House. That's scary. That's a little freaky. Thank you for the raid so long ago picture show. Much obliged for that. And I want to share with you one funny moment from his press conference today, which went for like an hour and a half. So I'm not going to cover much more on that, but this was pretty funny. This was Trump being pretty funny.
And while we're at it, we also took the Gulf of Mexico, and now it's the Gulf of America. Because we have 92% of the shoreline. It always bothered me. I'd say, we have most of the shoreline. Mexico has a small percentage, talks about 8%. We have 92%. And I said, why is it the Gulf of Mexico? It should be the Gulf of America. I was going to call it the Gulf of Trump, but I thought that I would be killed if I did that. I want
the Gulf of Trump. Oh my God.
I wanted to do it. I wanted to. My people work so hard. Sir, I don't think it'll look too good. I'm telling you, it's a good thing. And it'll be hotter than ever, I said. No, but I decided not to do that. I'm joking, when I say that. I was not going to call it the Gulf of Trump. because tomorrow will be Trump wanted to call it the Gulf of Trump, but he was rebuffed by his people. My people don't rebuff me too much. The Gulf of Trump, that does have a good ring, though. Maybe we could do that. It's not too late. No, we have the Gulf of America now. It's great. It's our country is proud for the attack on Venezuela, the attack on.
So there you go. So that was him talking about the Gulf of Trump, which I thought was pretty funny. So, yeah. Anyway, so he's been a man of action, and he's fought through countless litigation things. Here's another accomplishment of his that people, if you're not an attorney, you can't fully appreciate just how hard he worked to save our judiciary from becoming a joke. Because he could have turned our judiciary into a joke. He could have created, he arguably should have created a judicial crisis by basically telling these district court judges, go after yourself, when they tried impeding him, when they exceeded their authority. And he single-handedly saved us from having a constitutional crisis. And in many ways, that was one of his most significant accomplishments, in that he didn't allow our country to devolve into a place where the president says, okay, you know, what Andrew Jackson said of, it's nice that you signed, that you issued this order, now I'd like to see you carry it out. He could have told him, go after yourselves. Instead, time and again, he found ways to legally circumvent, to at least give them cover for their asinine rulings. They're like, I am respecting it. I am following your orders, even if they're stupid and your orders themselves are unconstitutional. He actually gave me an opportunity to introduce you, my audience, to the notion of an unconstitutional order, an order from a judge which basically purports to comply with the Constitution while exceeding any possible basis as to, like, how can you possibly think you have the authority to do what you're doing here? Like Judge Boasberg with his stupid turn that plane around. But still trying to give some sort of, instead of delegitimizing Boasberg, instead of exposing him for the joke that he is, the powerless joke that he can basically say, go to hell. I'm ignoring you because you're retarded, and that's not what the law says, and you're going to be reversed, which invariably these lower court judges were reversed. Instead of saying, you suck, you're wrong on the law, you're going to be reversed, I'm going to keep going, and we'll see who wins this legal battle, he actually took steps to try and, follow the wording of these different stupid statutes, even if he never really cared to follow the spirit thereof. And in that sense, gave enough regard for the fact, well, a district judge did say I shouldn't do this, so I'm going to not do exactly what they told me to not do. So in that sense, he's been a remarkable president. But we cannot ignore the fact that he has had some serious issues. The Epstein debacle was terrible. There's no sugarcoating that. From the day one of Bondi basically doing that stupid release to those social media influencers, giving them a binder full of nothing so that they would parade around saying, yay, we got it, to her statements about having 1 million files on her desk and then saying that there are no files, to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino looking like Amber Heard and Johnny Depp making a commercial about Australian pets, don't take your dog to Australia, where there's you can actually see an Uzi being trained on their heads. So too, that's what Kash and Dan Bongino look like when they're like, he totally killed himself. Totally did it. Totally killed himself. So all of this was basically, that was humiliating. And it really started a fracturing that we've seen in MAGA with the libertarians of MAGA, where they started going nuts on anything that he did. And, we saw the birth of a concept called the woke right. We have people on the right who basically a bunch of idiots, lunatics. Dave Smith. Sorry, guy's childishly stupid. I think he's incompetent. And Candace Owens going off her rocker. Tucker Carlson becoming a freaking joke. I don't blame that on Trump, but that you sort of have to feel like something here went wrong. And I do think it all started with Epstein. I think he sowed that fumble sowed unnecessary distrust when he's like, stop asking me about, the low light of the year was him basically saying, if you're still asking about Epstein, you're not really MAGA. That's unnecessarily hurtful. I hope that's the low point of his entire 4 years. I pray that that's a low point, because that was a very low point. So if you ask me, if I have to assess what kind of job he did in year one, it's such a difficult thing because there have been so many highs and then those unforced errors, and Pam Bondi has just been a complete frustration. Just a complete frustration. So if you ask me about his effort, I would say on a scale of 1 to 10, I give him like a 9.7. He's been amazing, his effort. If you ask me about his results, I'm like, look, when it comes to immigration, I think he's been imperfect, but excellent. I definitely didn't like when he made comments about, that, well, some folks have been illegally here for 20 years. So you can't just get rid of those people. I'm like, no, that's not what you said. You said we're getting rid of them all. That's what I want. I want them all out. Not just the ones who came in the last 4 years. And then he started saying, well, certain hotel industries or agriculture, they need to have illegal. No. I don't like that. Don't start waffling on that. That sounded like, someone was planting a seed in his ear. But I feel as if he's been responsive to MAGA. When MAGA complains, says, what the F are you talking about? And the difference is that we actually will do it. We say that to our leaders. We'll say that to Trump, most of us. So there's been moments of serious frustration. So scale of 1 to 10, you ask me what kind of job he's done in year one. I'd say 8.8. 8.8. That's what I'd say. And really, I think he's on a scale of 1 to 10. What he's done on the international scene, I gave him a 14. That guy, scale 1 to 10, I gave him a 14. That he's been crazy good at that. What he's done domestically, I give him more like a 6. And and most of the credit for that goes for how he's closed the border and DEI, and maybe I should give him more than that. Maybe I should give him a 7. So, yeah. But I'm curious about your thoughts. What do you guys think about his first year? I actually put a poll up. I'm curious how that poll is going. The poll I put up was asking people what they thought about his first year. I'm going to share with you what we're at so far. I was trying to encourage folks to actually comment. So still early in the poll. Usually I get 150, 200 votes in a poll. So far I only have 50, 60. I should probably put a poll in the chat. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe I'll put a poll in the chat. This is what I have here in my poll that I put up. Year one Trump's second term was 43% saying great, 36% saying mixed bag, mostly good. So that's almost 4 out of 5 of you. pretty much 4 out of 5 of you think that this was good to great. 14% saying kind of disappointing, and 7% saying awful. So I thought that was an interest. It's a good time to reflect on where we're at here. Should I put a poll up? I'm going to put a poll up. I want to see feedback from y'all. That was embarrassing. That was embarrassing. That was embarrassing. All right, here's the poll. Start a poll. Oh, I can copy and paste. That'll go faster. Control-A. I like that. You don't have to hear me clacking away. So I'm going to ask you to weigh in. Year 1 of Trump's second term was great, mixed bag, mostly good, mixed bag, mostly bad, or kind of disappointing, or awful. I started my poll. Before I start getting in on Minnesota here. Black pill incoming. We deported 2 million, but the net was 50K. We're getting scammed. Legal immigration is an equal problem. I'm not. Look, if you ask me, I wish we would have a moratorium on legal immigration. That's my personal perspective. I think we should have a moratorium, but legal immigrants are not the threat because they've been vetted. So also, to the extent they've been living here, it reduces the number of illegals. Meaning, if we're vetting people out and they've been living here, well, in that case, that's reducing the number of illegals, right? Liz! Joe! Buddy boy, you have such a beautiful voice. You lulled me right to sleep, but I'm back. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you so much. That's very, very kind. Fuma Few, here's to the call-in with Joe. That still may happen. We're a little behind. We had a little help over on Rumble. There's been a little help on Rumble. So we're somewhat behind, but that definitely could still happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So where are we at here? That was 8 out of 15. It's really 9. I can give a little added credit there to Liz because she's awesome. So may happen. Could happen. I'm feeling it. Who knows? No one doth know for sure. All right. Let's start talking about what's going on in the land of Minnesota. Should we start by talking about Tim Walz? Yeah, let's start there. Why not? Let's start with this little report here that's been shared a million times.
Get to that, I want to get to the breaking news we have just heard. The FBI has apparently just served subpoenas to several officials here in Minneapolis, including members of the office of Governor Tim Walz. We will bring you more information as we get it on those subpoenas. Meantime, the number of protesters out here at the federal building is diminishing every day, it seems, but the war of words between local officials and the Trump administration. Get to that, I want to get to the break.
So that's the big news everyone's very excited about. Libs TikTok saying multiple Minnesota officials served by the FBI with grand jury subpoenas for conspiring to impede ICE. That would include Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, Minnesota Mayor Jacob Fry, St. Paul Mayor K.O. He, her. I think it's like knockout he, her. That's how right? That's how you pronounce that? K.O. he, her. Ramsey County Attorney John Choi and Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Hammer Justice hopefully is coming if you have any faith in Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi's in Minnesota now. They say that's supposed to make folks in Minnesota quake, but we've seen her do nothing in her first year so far, or seemingly nothing. I think she's done things just, relatively inconsequential individuals. And here is Keith Ellison hanging out with this quirky looking fella whose name I always forget. I always forget this guy's name. I just think quirky fella every time I see him. It looks like he's wearing a velvet jacket. I don't know what's happening here. This is like, it's this quirky fella who raided Elton John's closet for his nightly news show.
Explanation or apology. Keith Ellison's a Minnesota Attorney General whose office just received a subpoena from Donald Trump's Department of Justice, and he joins me now. I want to start with the subpoena and then ask
This is true. He does look like Milhouse.
you about some of the things we're seeing, because that news just broke.
Sure.
It was reported on Friday night that they would be sending subpoenas out, I think, to Governor Walz, Mayor Fry, and yourself. I believe you have received the subpoena. What can you tell us, and what's your response?
We're going to look it over and we'll respond according to law. I can tell you, though, they're announcing investigations from all of us. And you mentioned 3 of us here in Minnesota. Actually, they're actually messing with the brand new mayor of St. Paul and the Hennepin County attorney. But they're not investigating the person who ended the life of Renee Good. There's no investigation on that.
It's like they're trying so hard to turn her into George Floyd, and it's like they're trying to make fetch happen
At all. And so it's a little bit ironic as we're doing the work that we're elected to do by our constituents, standing up for our states.
You want to know what the problem with the Renee Good story is? I'm going to tell you the 3 main problems with the Renee Good story. Here's the problem if you're a Democrat with the Renee Good story. First and foremost, the biggest problem with this story is she's white. Okay? That's the first problem. She's white. If she was black, Hispanic, if she wasn't quite so pasty-faced, this is a story which becomes far more unifying. They're hunting down the black people as they're driving in their cars. So first and foremost, that's their problem. She white. You can't even try and portray that maybe she's sort of black the way they do with Kamala Harris. No, there's just no pigmentation, and that's a problem for them. If you want to gin up, if you want to gin up emotion, nothing helps to work on that score with left as much as the race card. So her being white, and I understand that she's got her queer wife situation, so that sort of helps build sympathy, but it's not visible. You can't see it. You understand it intellectually, but you can't see it. It's not like, oh, he saw her and was like, I'm going to gun down a lesbian. It just doesn't. But the story of, oh, this is a racist, like Derek Chauvin trying to kill George Floyd, that is an easy thing for you to say, even though it's clearly, there's no evidence of it, but it's just something that people are going to naturally think. So her being white is a serious problem. Number 2 is that she looks like a lunatic hitting that gas. She looks like a lunatic. So you're not really justified. You can't. This is murder. This is murder. Is it? But is it? But is it? So, from a legal perspective, it definitely isn't. From a purely human, sympathetic perspective, it's like she's looking pretty guilty here. She's looking pretty guilty. Even if she was just fleeing, she looks very guilty. So she's a white woman who looks very guilty. And number 3 that you didn't have with Floyd is it's ice cold in Minneapolis right now. And so people aren't really that inclined to go out in the freezing cold and start screaming about Renee Good when it's a white woman who looked like a lunatic. That's the problem that they have. And this is why this is never going to be anything like the George Floyd situation. But they're still going to try, because this is the first for them. This is a win. They sit here crying about Renee Good. This is a win. It gives us something to cry about other than insane criminals who are not Americans.
Insisting upon the dignity and the rights of the members of Minnesota. They have not done anything close to what they should do when it comes to investigating a homicide. And again, I make no conclusion as to how the case should end up, but they have.
You've made all your conclusions already, and you made that apparent, Doofus.
Overtly.
This is crooked Keith Ellison, who's involved with the Somalians almost certainly, has all sorts of shady connections, and we cannot throw him in jail fast enough. This should be like, 3 doubles, and the third double landing on go directly to jail, do not pass go.
Very deliberately stated, we're not investigating anything. No one in the federal side is investigating the death of Renee Good. Now,
so here it is. I'm under investigation. Let me just talk about Renee Good.
Explain that.
In fact, we should.
What the hell does that have to do with the fact that you've been sent subpoenas? What are your thoughts on that?
Say there's reporting that indicates that the FBI, at least an FBI agent,
so Fat Face over here, Fat Face Millhouse, he basically is your classic shill over on MSDNC. So he's just going to go with the flow and whatever it is that the talking head talking to him gives him. Here is Nick Bavino talking about how this problem is because of the likes of folks like Keith Ellison.
For too long, residents have been told that enforcing our nation's immigration laws undermines public safety. In reality, the opposite is true. When the law is not enforced, violent offenders remain free. Criminal networks expand, and the community pays the price. Our neighbors, our citizens, our friends pay the price. Rather than confront that reality of which I've just spoken, leaders like Tim Walz or Mayor Fry have relied on heated rhetoric and accusations that distract from the facts.
So that's Greg Bavino basically saying these leaders are the ones who are at fault here. And it's true. They're the ones who keep basically saying, hey, look. There's all sorts of you should keep going out there and marching against ICE. So they're creating these confrontations. They're hoping there are more Renee Goods. That's really what it boils down to. But there's not just subpoenas of Tim Walz and Jacob Fry. Apparently there's another Minnesota politician who's yet again in hot water. And that's your favorite and mine, Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar under investigation after racking up millions while she was in Congress. Senior national correspondent Kevin Cork has it. What's up, Kevin?
Good to see you, my friend. What's the old saying? Follow the money? Well, that's precisely what the House Oversight Committee is doing. They are probing squad member Ilhan Omar's skyrocketing family wealth, Jesse, especially in the wake of that $9 billion, some would argue $19 billion, Somali social services fraud scandal that exploded in her district in Minnesota. The oversight chair, James Comer, says his team's lawyers are exploring the extraordinary step of subpoenaing Omar's spouse over his curious business practices. Republicans want to know how the Somali-born Omar and her politically connected husband, Tim Minette, went from being nearly broke to being worth around $30 million in just a year, according to her 2024 disclosure forms. Quoting Comer now, there are a lot of questions as to how her husband accumulated so much wealth over the past 2 years. It's not possible. It's not. And he's a money guy. Manette and his partner, Will Haler, back in 2022, formed an investment firm, Jesse, named Rose Lake Capital. They had $42 in their bank account at the time, but
42 to 30 million.
in a year, up to $25 million, according to Omar's filing. By the way, he also has a wine business that went from next to nothing to millions on its books. Not surprisingly, associates were so perplexed about the irregularities, they brought information and attention to the feds to, look into it. Now, for her part, the Congresswoman has repeatedly, and I say defiantly, denied any wrongdoing while being also careful to criticize the ongoing probe. But, sometimes they say, Jesse, the ones who yell the loudest have the most to hide.
Well, innocent until proven guilty. I'm sure everything was perfectly legal. We're just checking to find out. Kevin, good to see you. News alert.
And here's a point that Donald Trump shared out, which I think ties into the Ilhan Omar story, as to which I hadn't really thought of myself, but I think it's a great point. It's a great point. This is Donald Trump shared out. This is what's this guy's name? I forget. Someone here's going to say. One of you will know. Something with an F. Some long name, his last name. One of you will know. This guy looks jacked beyond belief.
You arrested 92 Somalis. You arrested 92 random fucking people that have an IQ of fucking 60, bro. Okay? You're going to tell me that these Somalis who have an average IQ of 68 somehow came up with this fucking plan to defraud the government? That's interesting, because do you think they also came up with the plan to donate half of the money that they defraud the government out to Act Blue? Like they come up with that plan too?
Right.
You arrested 92 Somalis. You arrested 92 random.
And this is a great point. That's a great point. Because as I was thinking about what he's saying here, I was like, I want you to just imagine for a second. Just think. Ponder this. If you went to a foreign country where you don't speak the language, do you think that you would be able, shortly after arriving, to manipulate the local welfare system to basically defraud your new government of millions of dollars a year? I mean, think about how hard that is. Someone has to be walking you through this. There has to be someone who's walking these Somalians through it, which would explain why there's so many Somalians involved in it. There has to be someone in that community who's actually saying, hey, this is how you can make tons of money. And here are the steps you follow. These are the steps that you take. And this is how you can make tons of money from the government. And I think that it's pretty clear that there has to be someone who's assisting them. And considering where their money ends up going to, and some of the wealth that's been rapidly accumulated by folks like Ilhan Omar, it really makes you question whether these people are intimately tied to the Democratic Party. And they're basically saying, hey, when you get there, this is how you do it. So I think that it does make sense to say that there was some sort of coaching. There was some sort of assistance that they got from locals about how these individuals can defraud the Minnesota state and federal and our federal government. And because otherwise, how would you get it done? How would you come up with all of this? How would you come up with a plan? How are you filling out forms? I mean, come on. So I think that that's a great point. I think that's a great point. Like all of a sudden, the most brilliant people on earth on how to defraud the government. Really? Really? Okay. All right. It's very rare for the retardos to figure out how to scheme against the government. They're all just going to happen to just come in from one particular country and get really good at it really fast. Doesn't seem very possible. Yeah, and also having the confidence to do it, all this stuff. It doesn't make any sense. It does not make sense. So I knew I was going to be singing this all night long. I do want to follow up with a couple more things coming out of Minnesota before I get on out of here. We didn't make our goal, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. That's okay. I still love you. I still love you just the same. That's what makes it a goal, is that some nights we make it, some nights we don't. Tried? We almost made it. But really came up short. So hey, I'm Tony. Can you do me a favor and just not I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about, but just not that. I'm seeing, I don't know what I'm seeing here. Just slow down. Just slow your roll. Okay? I hate having to slow the chat. I appreciate that you're not talking in all caps. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about what happened in the church, because there's a bunch I want to talk about with respect to that. I know I covered some of this yesterday. We spent a lot of time talking about the Don Lemon church issue last night. But the positions that some folks are taking is kind of astonishing. Like representatives in Congress who just refused to say there was anything wrong here. Why is it doing that way? This is, I think her name is Galvez or something like that. I don't know.
Do you believe it was a step too far for protesters to go into a church?
I don't. I don't. I think that when they find out that someone that's supposed to be speaking for the community in church is found out to be an ICE, a federal agent that is running ICE in their communities.
Who cares? How the hell is that relevant?
They have the right to go in there. Churches have always been an open door. And from my understanding.
So is Walmart. You can't go protesting in Walmart either. And you also have to recognize what the people who are doing there, what their objective is.
Understanding in the videos that I saw, those protesters were not violent in any way.
They were a-holes. They were complete a-holes.
Do you believe it was a
doofus? Is this live? Air Force One turned around. Someone mentioned that there was an electrical issue. We had a comment about that from Kathy earlier, saying Air Force One returned to JBA due to electrical issue. I appreciate the update. Certainly. Is this violent? No, it's just this guy is complete. There's really no other word. Dick.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good!
I don't know why these people are not in jail yet.
Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but
They're going after this church because it's not just an nice guy in front, but because it's white parishioners.
what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? I'm not going to comment. You have no comment. Exactly. You Renee, good. Renee, good.
We have a duty to win. We must love and support one another.
All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus prophet?
Listen to this lunatic. This freaking lunatic. Which, that was like a moment over here. This picture here of this kid crying while this whole thing was going down became viral. So this freaking lunatic.
Children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the words? No, Jesus would dine with immigrants. You do not touch me. Touch me again and see what happens.
Touch me again and see what happens.
You are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy life while people are starving. Shame. Out now. Out now. Living real comfortable while the people starve. Living real comfortable while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're all living real comfortable, aren't you? Shame on you. Do something. Stand with the Somalis.
Look at him trying to harass children. He's like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
Stand with the Latinos. Quit ignoring this injustice. He wears a suit and tie and he hangs out with Christy Nome. How is that a Christian? You're supposed to accept all immigrants, are you not? Why are you not going down to Whipple and joining us in protest against this inhumanity? You claim to be a Christian, act like one.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, this jackass. Apparently he can dish it out, but he talks real big, talks real tough, but can't really take it.
The people.
How intoxicated are you on a scale of 1 to 10?
Man, I've had a couple of drinks tonight, but that doesn't mean shit.
Just a few.
I'm an American patriot. I can have a couple of drinks.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
Come on, you guys getting paid?
I'm just asking
What you
questions.
guys getting paid? What are you guys doing? Why are you guys following people around?
Why are you following people around? What are you doing? That's this same knucklehead, this same schmuck. Why are you following people around? This is the guy who basically is harassing women and children, saying, why are you following people around? You sicko.
We're covering.
Why are you following the people?
Yeah, that same guy. Oh, he's totally fine following others around and harassing them, but when he gets followed, it's like, oh my God, why are you following people around? Doofus. Duck Fat says, I've set up a Give Send Go to help you pay the $150 for crushing your fantasy football league. I already spent $300 at Shanahan's, but couldn't afford the tip. Told the server to contact Good Lawgic. Did you send me your phone number? I asked you to reach out to me. Is there a Give Send Go? I'll pay it through. I said a Give Send Joe. Oh, to help me pay the final $150. If he's, it would make it so much easier. It would make it so much easier. You stupid little Venmo thing. My Venmo, I can explain this to you, okay? I explain this to you. I explain it to all of you. My Venmo is a business Venmo, so I can't put money into my Venmo. So and I don't have 150 bucks in there now. I basically, people send money on Venmo whenever the mood strikes them. So I had money that had been sitting in there. So I can't send it. I can't send it. I can only get money in or send. I can't add money to the account. That's why I was like, dude, I need another way to pay you, either by Zelle or PayPal or whatever, somewhere that I can add funds to the account. That was the issue that I had here. But that was funny. Give send Joe. You're funny. That made me chuckle. That did make me chuckle. Except Jew gold. How am I supposed to get it to you? I'm sitting on a big fat pile of Jew gold here. How am I supposed to get it to you? Oh, God. If you actually send up a Give Send Go, I would totally send you 150 bucks right now. That would actually make it way easier. At first, when I read your rant, I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I'll pay him like right here on stream." All right. Let me share with you this guy who went on CNN and was weighing in about the church thing.
I totally disagreed. Because of what a pastor does for a living or what they're involved in politically gives no one the right. There was a child in that video who was sitting in their father's arms, shaking, confused, trying to figure out what's going on when these people burst into this church. And Lee,
That's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit right there.
what I would say is people have a First Amendment right and the ability to go and protest against ICE. If they don't like ICE, be my guest, go protest. But those people in that church, I would say and not but, those people in that church absolutely have a First Amendment right to gather and worship the God of their choosing. And I'll say a point here is it is actually Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. With the day that we recognize his contribution to the country today. His mother in 1974 was shot and killed in a church because of political violence, because the KKK wanted to insert their political will over a community. This is remarkably similar to that. I remember my great-grandfather telling me stories about church bombings in the South. Remarkably similar to that. Everyone at this table should
so
have
the protest is similar to the person getting
Let me finish,
shot,
please.
but
Everyone
the
at this
person getting
table.
shot-
You don't have to cut me off. Let him. He wants to.
Everyone at this table, please, should have absolutely no issue saying that this was wrong. It was reprehensible behavior, and this is not the appropriate way that we address our grievances.
I don't know, Pam.
So which innocent people are and are not allowed to get shot as far
What a stupid question. Oh, which innocent people are not allowed to get shot? What the hell does that even mean? What a stupid thing.
as you're concerned?
That's not what I'm talking about. People have a right in this country, regardless of what your political convictions are, to worship freely and safely. And no one should watch a child on camera like what we saw, trembling in their father's arms because of your political
ICE
convictions.
does to children
I'm sorry,
and their families.
You're such a doofus. What a retarded response from this kid who's trying to grow in his pubes.
Your political convictions do not overstep someone's ability to worship safely
No,
and
but
securely.
stop making it about worship. Did I call that into question?
I'm sorry,
saying,
guys.
If
I
you're talking
respect
about
you, but there's no but. There's no but.
There
It's
is
a
a
full stop
different issue because
There is no but. There is no but at all. Well, there's one but. And he's over in Rumble right now. Rumble has some deranged psycho Trump TDS loser. So you all can feel free to have fun with him. Some European loser. It takes all kinds. It takes all kinds. I have a couple more clips I want to share with you guys before we get on out of here. Before we get on out of here, there was this one I covered. I actually have a great clip that I wanted to share with you. This one I didn't really care so much for. It's kind of stupid. I have two great clips before I get on out of here. So first and foremost, there was this guy basically saying to an anti-ICE chick, "You're a nobody," which I thought was funny.
Backing up.
You know what we're looking for? You want to know?
You have a warrant? I'd love to see
I
it.
do.
Okay, can I see it?
Who are you?
Can I see it?
Who are you?
Are you related?
I
to
live
the
here.
So what? A lot of people live here. Who cares?
Yeah.
Does that mean that you get to see?
Okay, do you have a warrant? I'd like to see it. I can put it on video.
No.
Oh, you don't? So you don't have a
I have a
warrant?
warrant, but I'm not going to show you.
Why not?
Because you're just going to warn the person to flee. So why would I do that?
Because you're nobody.
Okay.
Because you're a nobody. Oh, okay. I guess I am a nobody in the context of your picking up someone.
You're here because the office is closed, right?
No. We're here because we're looking for.
You're here because the office is closed. You don't have permission to be
You know what he did? You want to know what he did? Lula Civic College was a minor.
You want to know what your president did? He's a rapist. You need to go look for that motherfucker.
Yeah, well.
Yep.
Yeah. But you got one in your building and you're over here protecting him.
I'm not protecting nothing. I'm here to observe and make sure y'all are acting lawfully. You pulled me over the other backing up.
So there you go. I love that whole thing. You're a nobody. You're a nobody. I know someone was asking me to give an update on the poll that I put up here. 259 votes. I'm gonna close that poll out now. Year one of Trump's second term was 49%, almost half of you saying mixed bag, mostly good. 41% saying great. Then you had 8% saying mixed bag, kind of disappointing. And 2% saying awful. So that's pretty good. That's pretty impressive, actually. That's actually pretty impressive. And I'm going to tell you something. I did not. Did I really? It sounds like one of those deranged. I missed that one. I did miss some. Would they have done this in a mosque, a synagogue? Well, in a synagogue, they would have had guns. And in a mosque, no, they would not have done that. They wouldn't have done it in a black church. There's no way they would have done it in a black church. Zero chance. They would have been schooled so hard in a black church. There's zero chance they would have had the cojones to go into a black church, only a white church. Because they're counting on basically that that hospitality. I'm telling you right now, they would have been humiliated in a black church. Outside synagogues now, we actually have security guards because it's not a fear of protesters; it's literally a fear of being shot up. So there's that. He sounds like one of those deranged TV pastors. Yeah, well, that guy screaming out about Jesus didn't wear a suit. Yeah, crazy lunatic. It's Latinx. Can't even get his rhetoric right. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Latinas. Thank you for calling to my attention. I missed some of those chats. I appreciate you calling me out on that. I deserve that every time. So thank you for calling me out on that. I don't know how that happened. I think I had in mind to come back to it, and then I just sort of got sidetracked. So I apologize to those of you who felt I delayed too long on that. But that woman who was leading the charge there, that lawyer, She went on News Nation and basically showed how incompetent as an attorney she is. She's just digging her grave deeper and deeper. Seriously, stupid woman. I weep for anyone. I would weep for anyone she's representing, but they're probably terrible human beings.
Levy Armstrong helped organize the protest at the Minneapolis church this weekend. Nikema also, by the way, ordained.
Nikema Levy Armstrong. There will be a case of United States versus Nikema Levy Armstrong. This I am telling you now. I believe in my heart of hearts there will be U.S. versus Nikema Levy Armstrong. There will be federal charges brought against this woman.
Reverend. Okay, so miss her with the what
it might be as a co-defendant with Don Lemon and crazy lunatic drunk guy who loves to harass children, but she will be in these papers.
You've been sending me today. These protesters hate Jesus. She's a reverend. All right, just putting it out there. Former Homeland Security.
She ain't no reverend. Okay, I'm just saying it. I've spoken to enough of you about this. I'm saying it now. Same way, if you told me that she was a rabbi, I'd be like, she ain't no rabbi. Doesn't mean she doesn't have some sort of certificate. She probably does have some sort of certificate that says she's a reverend. I'm just saying, I think most Christians would say she ain't no reverend. That's my personal take. I've been hanging out with you people long enough to know that, yeah, she ain't no reverend. She ain't no rabbi. She ain't no reverend. And the church images the Huddle Peeps were Asian. Yeah, it actually looked like an Asian woman together with a white guy and a white boy. So I don't know if it's her kid, but I thought the father and son were white and that she was Asian.
Security chief of Washington, D.C., Donnell Harvin, and Trump's former acting director of ICE, Jonathan Fahey. Good to have each and all. Counsel, I'll start with you.
That's her, because she's a lawyer. She's not just a reverend, but she's a lawyer. I'm sure she's equally adept at both. I got a lot of evidence that she's equally adept at both.
Counsel Armstrong, how do you believe that the protesters, were they supposed to go into a place of worship as far as you understand about the video that we're seeing?
Absolutely.
She was Asian. I'll pull up the picture here for crying out loud. I mean, I tweeted it out. I'll pull up the picture for you. This is the picture. He looks white. This guy, that complexion, look, could be the lighting. That complexion doesn't look, she's Asian. I know that. I'm simply saying, you don't see Asians with like blonde hair. And yeah, or beards that are quite that full. So I've never seen an Asian who had a beard like that. He looks closer to being a Muslim than he does an Asian. So yeah, I don't know. I'm assuming that this kid here is not her offspring. I could be wrong. Who the heck knows? I'm not trying to dox anyone. I'm just saying. Actually, she earned her law, pastor, and rabbi license in the smallest school for kids who can't read. So good. That was funny. All right, so let's hear this reverend lawyer weigh in.
And about the video that we're seeing.
Absolutely. We went into
and that is legal. Why? That's the context.
We were.
You don't go on TV. So stupid. You know you're under investigation. You don't go on TV and just start presenting your defense, especially when it's this pathetically researched defense.
Invited into the church.
That's what her claim is.
The pastor himself is on video calling it a public gathering.
Calling it a public gathering doesn't mean that you can just march in wherever the hell you want. That's idiot.
a public church service.
That doesn't, a public church service, that doesn't mean that you're authorized to just start screaming on a microphone or screaming whatever the hell you're screaming and leading chants that are clearly designed and purposefully designed to try and thwart those services, moron.
So we were invited in and
this is something. She was like one of the 5 people on Biden's shortlist for Supreme Court, no doubt.
contrary to your opening statement saying BLM protesters busted in, that's absolutely inaccurate. As a matter of fact, most of the people who were a part of the protest were everyday, ordinary citizens who are frustrated with the brutality that we have dealt with at the hands of ICE. And over the weekend, we found out that one of the pastors at the church, David Easterwood, also serves as the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul at the Whipple Federal Building. Now, as an ordained reverend and as an itinerant preacher,
Doofus.
I was shocked. I'm someone who believes very firmly in the gospel of.
This is the first thing that you got accurate so far, Callio. You have fans. Jacob wants to find you on Grindr. So
Jesus Christ. And the foundation of that reverend and as an itinerant preacher, I was shocked. I'm someone who believes very firmly in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the foundation of that gospel is to love thy neighbor as you love thyself. When you contrast that to the behavior of ICE agents who have done anything but love their neighbor, as a matter of fact, they have killed their neighbor. When Renee Good was killed by ICE agent Jonathan Ross on January 7th of 2026, we realized that there is a dichotomy at work that is unsustainable. How can you be both a pastor as well as someone who unleashes ICE agents upon our community who are inflicting harm day after day after day? That's the real story.
I understand the grievance. I cover that story here every day, Nakima. What I'm saying is, are you open to one, the pastor saying, I did not invite them in, and he says on tape many, many times, I don't want them here. I didn't ask them in. They came in. But that's a question of fact. Let's put it to the side. Are you open to the perspective of people seeing this as proof of what's wrong with your side?
Nobody likes this person. Nobody likes this person. Trust me.
As it's called right now, as opposed to, go ahead.
No, I think it's proof of what's right, because what you may not realize is that we walked into the church, sat down, participated in the service, singing the songs along with the parishioners, and even praying along with the parishioners.
Yep.
And during the pastor's prayer, he specifically said, Lord.
I want to see if I can find a fuller clip of that. I want to see if I can find. Let me see if I can find a fuller clip of that. News. Nation. Chromo. Kima. I want to see if I can dig that up.
Let's discuss the state of play, all right? Now, question of fact, let's put it to the side. Are you open to the perspective of people seeing this as proof of what's wrong with your side, as it's called right now, as opposed to, go ahead.
No, I think it's proof of what's right. Because what you may not realize is
because we're really good at terrorizing children. Don't you appreciate how good we are at that?
We walked into the church, sat down, participated in the service, singing the songs along with the parishioners and even praying along with the parishioners. And during the pastor's prayer, he specifically said, Lord, I pray that you will chasten us and help us to get our house in order. So once he was done.
That means that you're in position to, okay. Confession through projection. You don't love thy neighbor by intimidating and screaming in their faces. Timu Reverend. Timu Reverend. You are Antichrist.
Okay. Praying, as a reverend, I stood up. I was the first person to stand up. And I started walking towards the side. And I said, excuse me, Pastor, you just prayed that you wanted God to chasten you or chasten this church and help you get your house.
Well, I'm God, and I'm here to chasten you. I've been so disappointed in Trump's Ellison first agenda. Other than the border, he's been the opposite of campaign Trump. Well, I'll tell you, I've heard that. I assume when you say Ellison first, I think you mean that's an Israel first agenda. I think that a lot of people, I think that this is, it's drawing a lot of presumptions about Trump. It's drawing a lot of presumptions about Trump, that he's the one who's being manipulated by Bibi rather than vice versa. So, I mean, Bibi's the one who basically sent his own troops in there to knock out all the defenses and take all the hits from Iran. And basically, with respect to Iran, basically Israel, the IDF knocked out any potential opposition that American forces would have before dropping bunker busters, which I think is ultimately long-term benefits for everyone, but them not having nukes. So I'm not sure what beyond that you refer to as an Ellison first agenda. But I assume when you say Ellison first, you mean Israel first agenda. But I'll tell you this guy has complete control of the Western Hemisphere. He's complete control of the situation in Venezuela. So I don't know how that would be an Ellison first agenda, or I mean, the different peace deals that he's negotiated with Cambodia, Congo, like around the world. Like none of this has anything to do with Ellison. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the critique is on that. And by border, I assume you mean deportation as well. I mean, he's come forward on the whole DEI thing. He's done really remarkable work there. He's revamped our military. He's lowered. He reinstituted the favored nation status. It's just like, I mean, I went through 365 different accomplishments he had, most of which had nothing to do with Ellison. But I get it. You know, I want him to be serving America first. That's what I want. I want him to care about American interests first. So.
House in order. And the pastor said, correct. And then I said, well, help me understand, why is David Eastergood a pastor here and part of ICE? Now, as I said that and I uttered the name David Eastergood, that's when the pastor said,
I'm still fascinated by this Callio person. If I come uninvited at Bossman's truck stop and enter, you will blast me. I want you to. I have a feeling you want a lot of dudes to blast you. But that's just based on what I've seen so far tonight.
Shame, because he did not want the congregation to know that David Easterwood serves in a dual role. So that's what I think is missing from the context here.
I get it. But here's the problem. While you're telling that story, we're seeing something that is not that. We're seeing a bunch of people with cameras in his face, yelling at parishioners or whatever they're called, and a lot of other things. But I get where you're coming from on it. That's why I invited you on. I wanted you to tell people what your experience there was. Now let's discuss, okay? So I'll start with you. Donnell, you hear that reckoning of the event and how it was intended. Do you believe that it becomes a trespass anyway?
Well, my angle is Homeland Security and protecting the public. And I think that, just like in anything, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Quite frankly, I look at it from a bigger picture. People like me have spent the last 2 decades trying to protect houses of worship. Just a few weeks ago, we had a house of worship in Mississippi burned, a synagogue. We had people go into churches and shoot people. And so my take on this is, yeah, sure. I don't think that political
increased spending. I agree. I don't like that. I definitely don't like that. Same old swamp. There definitely are too many swamp, but that's not something you can just clear out overnight, right? I mean, he's tried clearing out a lot of the swamp. The elected parts of the swamp, he can't do anything about them, but he's tried clearing out. Expanding executive power. There has been an expansion of executive power that I agree with you about, but if he didn't, the expansion of executive power is primarily in his ruling by fiat, i.e., by executive order. So yeah, he's done the whole executive order thing, but yeah, it's, if not for that, seriously, like nothing would get passed because we're dealing with a uniquely obstructionist Congress. I'm sure you recognize that. I mean, even when he passes an EO, it's got to go through all these different hurdles with one district judge after another who's going to put a nationwide EO, who's going to put a kibosh on his nationwide EO, despite the fact that the Supreme Court has told them they don't have the authority to do that, but they still do it. So you got basically, and you're dealing with a Senate there where unless the Senate agrees to kill the filibuster, which they should have done, they should have done back in September. Unless they kill a filibuster, you cannot get anything through. Nothing can possibly get through unless you sweeten it with so much pork that you're going to hate the bill. Right? So you're basically like, oh, okay, so we'll spend another $50 billion on Ukraine just so we can try and get some election law in. It's like you don't want that. So he has been ruling, he's been expanding his executive power. I wouldn't even call it expanding executive power. He's been testing what limits he has, meaning these are all powers that he either has or does not have. So the Supreme Court recognizes his power. That's him just using powers that are already available to him. But I understand that that's probably what you're referring to when you say expanding executive power. Pretending inflation isn't real, that's the same thing as increased spending, right? I mean, that's the same thing. Finishing up Wesley Clark's 7 country plans. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Every time he fought with Massey, he betrayed the voters. That I respectfully will disagree with you about. I think that Massey has been kind of off his rocker sometimes. I think he's been somewhat off his rocker sometimes. Specifically, I was talking earlier about tariffs, where he and Rand Paul were basically yelling about tariffs. So that's congressional power. Which by Constitution, I think that's technically accurate. But even if it was a congressional power, why wouldn't you want to cede him that authority in this particular instance when he's using it so effectively to bludgeon foreign countries to America's benefit? So yeah, while the Constitution, as outdated as that portion of it is, meaning I believe that the Constitution is outdated in that it didn't account for the growing power of the American consumer dollar towards a real arrow in the quiver of a president negotiating foreign policy. Because tariffs could be used as revenue generating, in which case they're appropriately congressional powers, or they can be used as a bludgeoning tool for negotiating with foreign powers, in which case it's much more of an executive branch, presidential type of power. And my point is that I think that back when the Constitution was first being drafted, they couldn't conceive of the fact that we would have this sort of spending power where it would be so influential on an international stage. So they only looked at it as the former, a taxing power, rather than as the latter, a leverage weapon for a president to wield against foreign governments. And he's been using it to try and wield it. So seeing as how that's what he has been doing, when Thomas Massey wants to say, hey, the Constitution doesn't let you do this, he's technically accurate, but the Constitution does let him do it with congressional authority. So why wouldn't you give him that congressional authority? Why are you saying no to that? You want him to go through the steps? Okay, I get that. You don't want him to expand federal power. I get that. I'm just saying, why wouldn't you give him that authority? You should say, hey, you cannot do that without us, but here is our blessing. That's what he should have been saying. That was the proper thing to say. Instead, it's like, no, 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 no. It's like, why? Why are you doing that? Is that in America's interest? Or is it your own personal interest, Thomas Massey? And I feel like a lot of it is his personal interest. He wants to just basically be that guy. He wants to be that guy. It's very important to him to be that guy. Same for Rand Paul. So I'm looking to see if you commented. I'm looking here to see if you commented without sending super chat, because you don't have to send everything by super chat. I think I think you're making points in good faith, and that's why I'm engaging you as extensively as I am. All right.
Activity should be done in houses of worship. I think they should be protected. You could have set up.
I hate seeing Lindsey Graham around him. I think that guy's a snake.
So across the street, there's a lot of places you could have gone, particularly when houses of worship have been a target specifically over the last few years. I mean, you just look at the children.
But there was no violence. There was no violence, Donnell, and if they had done that, we wouldn't be talking about it right now.
No, but what I'm saying is that, as a society, we've kind of become desensitized to violence, and all you need take a Kyle Rittenhouse type of character to go out there and take matters into their own hands. Houses of worship should be protected, and they should be places that people work.
Kyle Rittenhouse, that was self-defense. What are you talking about? Where he's fighting against people trying to kill him. I don't even know where Kyle Rittenhouse's name comes up here.
Worship and not do political activity. We know that political activity can become violent. And when people see this online on the far right, you talk about the left and the right, when people are consuming this from the far right, and I've been looking at conservative media all day, all weekend about this, they're becoming radicalized by this. What's to stop them, Pastor, from going to a black house of worship like the Proud Boys did in DC when I was there and doing vandalism or staging their own type of events? And so this is not, I think, what we want as a community, as a homeland security and public safety community to happen in houses of worship. It just makes our jobs a lot easier, harder.
Nakima, I'll have you respond to that, but I would point out to the audience, again, you can feel how you want about what the law was or how the decorum was. We do not see anybody being physically assaulted in this situation or even threatened as such. Just for the record, to be clear. Nakima, please respond, and then I want to go to Mr. Fahey.
Well, my first response to Donnell is that the analogy you're using does not apply here. The reality is that we are nonviolent, peaceful demonstrators coming to engage in a dialogue with the church about an issue that is inherently political. And the claim that politics doesn't belong in the church, what planet are you living on?
Well, maybe Earth. For you to come in there and start influencing with, politics, your own personal politics, infusing that into a church service, what planet are you living on?
Jesus was inherently political by bringing forward this call to focus on the poor, the just, the neighbor, pay unto Caesar what Caesar is due. And as a matter of fact, if I recall correctly from the word, he went in the church and flipped over the tables of the money changers. So let's not get it twisted. This is not a homeland security issue. And I take issue with you trying to analogize it for clicks or whatever you're trying to do, sir. The point is, we went in there peacefully. And if you look closely at the videos, you will see protesters speaking calmly with parishioners. Some of the parishioners wanted to know and understand why we were there. They had no idea, many of them, that David Eastergood was the director, is the director of the ICE office in St. Paul.
No one gives a damn about that. No one cares.
So they were calmly communicating with protesters. I helped
Your protesters were screaming like a bunch of friggin' lunatics.
to lead some of those chants. One of the first chants that I led was hands up, don't shoot. So
Yeah, which is a stupid, gay-ass type of ridiculous type of thing. Don't shoot. Like, why is like when you know that you're talking to people who are completely unarmed?
let them know we come in peace.
That doesn't mean we come in peace. Why don't you just say we come in peace? Why would you say that?
We're not here for any type of violence or anything like that. But we thought it was important.
But look, you know that a lot of people in there,
Yeah, you basically made little kids cry, so you failed.
people in there were intimidated, did feel that they had been yelled at. There's video that shows the same. It was a mixed experience, but again, I didn't see, I'm sure they did.
So what? So what? What about the ones who weren't?
But I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. But that's part of the concern of why you have time, place, and manner
The reason they did it was to terrorize. The objective was to terrorize them.
restrictions that are often part of an understanding of how to protest. But let me bring in Mr. Fahey. Mr. Fahey, two things. One is the micro of this situation. But let's deal with the macro first, if we may, which is, do you understand why there is a growing amount of rejection of the tactics that ICE is using on citizens and some non-violent potential illegal immigrants?
I understand that people are upset with ICE in these certain places like Minneapolis, Chicago, and LA. And I think if you're being honest about it, it's being caused by people like Tim Walz, by people like Jacob Frey, because take a step back, Chris. Tim Walz, in May of this year, at a commencement speech for the Minnesota Law School, called ICE the Gestapo. So this is long before this. They've been laying the groundwork for this for a very long time. When Biden was in office, when they started getting some heat on the border, what did they do? They tried to George Floyd it by everyone in the administration, try to accuse Border Patrol agents of whipping migrants for racial reasons. They've been doing this for years. And it's funny, it's only in these red states that you have Illinois because J.B. Pritzker's trying to be the president.
Blue
California.
states, you mean?
Yeah, blue states.
You mean
J.B.
blue
Pritzker,
states, but Jonathan, correlation is not causation. The reason that you're seeing it in those states is that they have the populations that are being targeted, and the tactics are playing out there.
That's not true at all. They're being arrested nationwide. They're arrested in Florida.
I didn't say there aren't being arrests.
Yeah,
I'm not saying they're being arrested.
There's none of this disruption.
Jonathan,
yeah, there's none of this disruptions.
But
you're just wrong, Chris.
Hold on, Jonathan. I'm not wrong because I'm not disagreeing with the part you think I'm disagreeing with.
They're doing it. They're not doing it in the red states.
They are raiding in blue states, targeting these population centers in a way that we have not seen in red states yet. And these policies.
No, we have seen it in red states. You just haven't. You just don't see it on the news because you don't have the same. Because they're being handed over by the authorities. Cuomo's such a tool sometimes. He's trying. He's such a tool.
Are inherently political, to your point, which is why red and blue may see the.
Let's go to.
But here's one thing.
Let's go.
Wait, Jonathan, I don't want to. Hold on, Jonathan. I don't want to talk about the politics per se, but I do want you to clear up one thing.
Your other guests talk for 15 minutes about whatever.
I'm gonna let you talk. I check everybody on the show, Jonathan. That's why I invited you. If I didn't want you to talk.
Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, I think that this clip here, which I meant to show yesterday but didn't, really underscores how pleased they were.
I see you out at. He wears this.
Not this one.
The word.
For your service, I appreciate people who are wearing.
Look at this moron Lemon afterwards.
The uniform now. You think they're patriots?
I don't think so, especially those ICE agents.
That's what I'm talking
no.
about. Yeah. Well,
No, they're terrorists. They're traitors.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. I appreciate.
Today we had the honor to.
Thank you for your service. And this guy basically helps to indict Don Lemon by talking about how privileged he was to be marching with Levi Armstrong and Don Lemon.
Protest with Nikema Armstrong and the Racial Justice Network. Just like Jesus did, we went into that church and we flipped tables peacefully.
Yeah. This is all helpful for the prosecution. All helpful for the prosecution. All answers are found in Torah. Can you recommend a publication in Torah that I should buy and read? I'm Christian and read the first 5 books of the Bible often. I'm also trying to learn Hebrew. Yes. I recommended this the other day. This is the Stone Chumash version from, I think it's produced by ArtScroll. Looks like an ArtScroll type of thing. Stone Edition Chumash, travel size, Ashkenaz. You can get Sfarad, it's really the same thing. But this is it right here. That's what it looks like. It's in both Hebrew and English, so you'll be able to understand. See, that language is in English, but it's in Hebrew and English. And they provide an excellent translation. So that's what I would recommend. They have interpretations also, explanations. They're very good at what they do. So if I saw a word that I was like, well, that's an unusual word, I don't know what it means, that would probably be my go-to. And so that's what I can recommend. There was one more clip I wanted to share with you all here. This is because how can anyone not love a good Scott Jennings clip? How can anyone not? How can anyone not? John Mansell says, expose the corruption in Congress and declassify the CIA's nonsense, and the swamp would clean itself. Oh, I'll tell you right now, I want there to be more transparency. I think he's been more transparent than anyone else, but I want there to be far more transparency. And I understand the feeling of betrayal that you have. That you sort of, I get it. I get it that you're like, if we're not going to get this exposed now, it'll never happen, right? I was talking all about this when Bongino and Patel were standing up there saying, oh, there's nothing in Epstein and he killed himself and all that other idiocy. And I'm like, you were the guy. You were the one who was able to like break through for us. So if you can't break through for us, if you're, who is it? No one's going to be able to. This corruption is unbreakable. In that sense, it's very disheartening. So I get that. I get that. But I think it's unfair to ignore the genuine accomplishments that he has had. And there have been many accomplishments. And I think that what happened is a lot of people got so jaded, they got mad about, like, I don't know, about Tyler Robinson and those theories, which seem to be like a brand new theory every day with Charlie Kirk, or about Epstein. And I think that they basically lost sight of like, okay, what did you get out of this? And I think that that's where people get very, very lost. I mean, it's not a small thing to close the border, which was supposedly impossible. And yet it was completely shut down with, with us having fewer people in this country now than we had a year ago. That's a remarkable thing, considering that you haven't seen that in your lifetime, ever. That's never happened in your lifetime. Last time was 50 years ago. You haven't seen that in your lifetime. So to make it as if that's, and I know you gave credit for the border, but I'm just saying, like, that's not like a small thing. That was the first thing. That was the first top of the list thing. I think the economy is improving. I don't like the spending that is happening. I've never liked the spending. I said that in his first term. So yeah, and I think that he's done a remarkable job of insulating the Constitution from being in crisis by finding ways to circumvent the ridiculous judges and the obstructionism that he's faced. He also has, even in the GOP, he has all these different problems with people who are neocons. So I think he's been walking this tightrope of trying to find ways to get the job done effectively, and I wish there was more transparency. To me, I think that would actually help a great deal. Arya Kaplan's Living Torah better than Art Scroll. Okay, that could be. That could be. I don't know if I've read that. It could be. Jesus threw out the money changers, not those worshiping, flipped the tables to make themselves feel virtuous, trying to cleanse your filthy rags. See, the rage you're feeling is the same rage I feel when I watch some of these Jewish rabbis who are basically, I feel like, perverting my religion. I get it. I totally get it, Kim. You see me lose it on those folks. And disclosure could be a timing thing. We are at year one. We are. It's like there's a certain expectation. And we've also been disappointed by Pam Bondi. I just feel as if we're in year one. And we've been starting to cook, and there's a lot more to do. If the accomplishments at the end of year one is the accomplishments for the full 4 years, I'd say that's a bust. But it's year one. This is why Joe's leader following. I repented and will not sacrifice the red squirrel. I set him free. You're one of the good ones, Chadwick. You're one of the good ones. Look at this face. Look at this face. This is the face of someone who's just waiting for that first day of stubble. Just waiting for it. About to get schooled. About to get schooled by Scott Jennings. This is the final clip before we get on out of here.
I recognize you haven't reviewed all the material anymore.
But you have. I don't.
You don't get to say the word illegals anymore. I don't.
Who are you to tell me what I can and can't? I've never met you, brother. Listen, I can say whatever I want. They're illegal aliens, and that's what the law calls them, illegal aliens. That's what I'm going to call them.
Right. Listen, you can't say illegals anymore because ICE is directly targeting legal citizens of this country. And how
are you going to enforce your edict on me, just out of curiosity?
Listen, I understand.
Just listen to his point about illegals.
No, I want to know why he gets to instruct
You're
my
changing the topic.
Hang on.
I want to know.
You're making a point, making
about
an emotional
people being
plea.
arrested.
I understand that your job is predicated on just getting increasingly more demented every single week, and that the audience comes back to see if perhaps
Make your point.
My point is that you're saying the word illegals, but you don't even really know what's happening. Or actually, I think you do, and you're doing this on purpose. But
yes,
the truth
because
is,
I want the law enforced.
They are not just targeting illegal immigrants. They are targeting natural-born U.S. citizens.
They are not.
That is a fact. You cannot deny that. I mean, you can on national television.
They are
deny
not.
facts all the time.
They are
done it
not.
a couple times in this very episode.
I still want to know how you're going to enforce your language edicts on me.
We'll take that up.
How are we going to enforce it?
We're going to take that up in the break. Coming.
You don't get to say illegals anymore. Really? That's fascinating. That's fascinating stuff there. Scott Jennings. Scott Jennings. All right. And that's all I have to say about that. I will remind you before I get on out of here that there are certain Europeans who are all enamored and think it's all the rage for you to be eating lab meat. Okay? So Europeans like this little beta over here, they're like, oh, wow, have you tried that lab meat? Throw me some more lab meat on the grill. You were never meant to eat lab meats. It's meant for they, them. It's not meant for you. And do not eat the bugs. Don't eat the bugs. Just don't do it. Don't do it. I'll see you all, God willing, tomorrow. Till then, take care of yourselves. And as always, good night and Godspeed.